Chapter 2188. Madness. At this moment, Yi Xian was on the verge of going completely mad. However, he still forcefully suppressed his bloodline and allowed himself to retain a trace of clarity. Shaoan. She was the first woman that Yi Xian liked, and he had always felt that he owed her. He owed her a lot. His heart was bleeding when he saw the spirit demon woman stab the saber into Xiao An's abdomen. At that moment, he panicked. He really panicked. The days that he spent with Shaoan were very few, so few that he seemed to have neglected her existence most of the time. But just a moment ago, he was terrified. He had never been so terrified. If Shaoan were to die, he had never panicked like this even when he was in a hopeless situation. It was fear that came from the depths of his heart. It was like this most of the time. Some people usually seem to have no sense of existence, and you wouldn't cherish them. But when they suddenly left one day, you would realize how painful your heart was. How many people missed that moment, and they missed their entire lives. Li Sheng was terrified to the extreme in front of Yi Xian, and he didn't dare say anything else. He hurriedly took out a teleportation scroll and passed it to Yi Xian. Young Master Yi, this can teleport you to the spirit demon world. Yi Xian suddenly pulled out the sword that was stuck in between Li Sheng's brows, and then he crushed the teleportation scroll. Bang! A teleportation formation appeared beneath Yi Xian's feet. In the next moment, Yi Xian's body started to turn illusory. Li Sheng hesitated for a moment, and then he said, "Young Master Yi, I know you're angry, but I still have to remind you that the spirit demon world isn't a simple place. Even the pavilion master didn't allow us to step foot into that world all those years ago. Once you go, I'm afraid you won't be able to return. You." Meanwhile, Yi Xian had completely vanished. Li Sheng fell silent. Yi Xian has gone mad. I'm afraid I won't be able to see this young Master Yi again. At this moment, Li Sheng suddenly turned his head, and he frowned slightly. So many powerful auras. Are those experts that have been sleeping for countless years about to awaken? Spirit Demon Realm. An hour later, Yi Xian opened his eyes. At this moment, he was already on a piece of land. The sky was dark red, and the surroundings emitted an extremely uncomfortable pressure. Yi Xian scanned his surroundings, and in the next moment, he disappeared on the spot. He already sensed An Lunxio's aura. At this moment, an expert from the spirit demon race suddenly appeared in front of Yi Xian. He stared at Yi Xian and was about to speak when a sword pierced his throat. Qi! A jet of fresh blood spurted out. Yi Xian appeared in front of the spirit demon race expert, pulled out his sword, and vanished on the spot. Qi! The spirit demon powerhouse's head slowly fell to the ground, blood splattering everywhere. Not long after, another spirit demon expert appeared in front of Yi Xian. He looked at Yi Xian with narrowed eyes, and just as he was about to speak, the azure profound sword suddenly pierced through his head. Qi! The spirit demon expert's eyes were wide open, and they were filled with disbelief. What? Before he could finish speaking, his head shot into the sky. Yi Xian suddenly appeared in front of the spirit demon expert, and then he suddenly pulled out his sword. In the next moment, he charged forward and vanished into the horizon. At the same time, countless bloody heads flew into the sky and the surroundings. He killed as he went. Just like that, Yi Xian madly pursued An Lunxio's aura in the distance, and he killed anyone he saw along the way. Yi Xian's arrival alarmed the entire spirit demon race. A terrifying aura suddenly crushed down from the distant horizon. Below, Yi Xian raised his head, and a sea of blood surged in his eyes. In the next moment, he suddenly vanished on the spot, and the azure profound sword in his hand transformed into a ray of blood-red light that shot into the sky. How dare you! A furious shout suddenly resounded in the sky. Who are you? How dare you offend my spirit demon race? In the next moment, a shrill cry resounded in the sky, and then a bloody head fell slowly from the sky. Yi Xian opened his palm, and the azure profound sword returned to his grasp. After that, he vanished into the distance. It didn't take long for Yi Xian to arrive before an ancient city, and he saw many spirit demon experts there. However, he didn't see Lancio or the two spirit demon experts from before. A middle-aged spirit demon gazed coldly at Yi Xian. Who are you? How dare you offend my spirit demon race? Yi Xian didn't answer him, and he suddenly flew up into the sky on his sword. In the sky above the city, Yi Xian suddenly drew his sword and slashed. A ray of blood-red sword energy slashed down from the sky, and in an instant, an enormous hole was torn open in the world. The middle-aged man's pupils constricted, and he hurriedly roared furiously, "Formation!" As soon as he spoke, a ray of black light shot into the sky from within the city, and then it transformed into an enormous barrier of light that enveloped the entire city. Meanwhile, the ray of blood-red sword energy slashed down. Bang! The enormous barrier of light shattered, and the sword energy slashed into the city. Hiss! The entire city was slashed into two by Yi Xian's attack, and the sword energy sunk deep into the ground. In an instant, the aura of countless souls shot into the sky from within the city. Those were the souls of the dead. At least 100,000 spirit demon experts were annihilated by this attack. The middle-aged spirit demon and the other experts on the city walls were stunned. Meanwhile, Yi Xian suddenly flew up into the sky on his sword. In the next moment, the middle-aged spirit demon's pupils constricted, and then a sword instantly shot through the space between his brows. In the blink of an eye, the heads of all the spirit demon experts on the city walls flew into the air while Yi Xian had charged into the city. Everywhere the sword energy passed, heads flew into the air. Boundless sword energy and killing intent swept through the entire city, and countless spirit demon experts were instantly torn into pieces by the sword energy. In less than 10 breaths of time, the entire city directly became a purgatory. Outside the city gates, Yi Xian slowly walked towards the distance. Behind him, there was already not a single living thing left. For one person, slaughtering an entire city. Although the current Yi Xian did not go completely mad, he was already on the verge of going completely mad. Yi Xian gripped the azure profound sword in his hand and slowly walked towards the distance. Each step left a blood-colored footprint. The matter of Yi Xian slaughtering an entire city spread throughout the entire spirit demon world rapidly. And at this moment, the entire spirit demon world was shaken. Someone slaughtered into the spirit demon world. In an instant, countless powerful auras rose to the sky from the spirit demon world's main city, the demon city, and then shot towards the horizon. Yi Xian suddenly stopped. Not far in front of him, there stood a spirit demon old man. A super powerhouse above boundless realm. After Yi Xian slaughtered that city, the spirit demon race's upper echelons understood that boundless realm powerhouses were not this youth's match at all. Hence, in order to not make unnecessary sacrifices, they directly sent out a powerhouse above boundless realm. The old man stared at Yi Xian and was just about to speak when Yi Xian suddenly vanished from where he was. The old man's eyes narrowed slightly. Insolence. When his voice faded, he suddenly charged forward and threw a punch at Yi Xian. This punch was unleashed. Countless mysterious runes suddenly emerged in the surroundings. In an instant, the surrounding heaven and earth were directly confined by an enormous cage. Immediately following that, a series of horrifying forces surged towards Yi Xian like tidewater. One punch imprisoning heaven and earth. Yi Xian was expressionless. That sword strike was not retracted. Boom! Suddenly, an expanse of blood-red light exploded in this world, and then the talismans were instantly transformed into nothingness. At the same time, the old man retreated explosively to a distance of 3 kilometers away. As soon as he stopped moving, the space behind him exploded apart and transformed into a pitch-black expanse. The old man looked at Yi Xian in the distance, his eyes filled with disbelief. You! How can you possibly break my Dao art so easily? The green profound sword. Actually, Yi Xian hadn't activated the energy of time. However, even if he didn't, the green profound sword wasn't something that the Shao Dao art could resist. For example, even if a dragon was dead, it wasn't something that ants could disrespect. If he activated the energy of time, then not to mention the Shao Dao art, even the Time Master's time laws could be destroyed with ease. Meanwhile, Yi Xian suddenly vanished on the spot. In the distance, the old man's pupils constricted. He didn't dare play any more flashy tricks, and he immediately charged forward and punched at Yi Xian. It was pure strength. This punch directly smashed onto the tip of Yi Xian's green profound sword. In the next moment, the old man's pupils constricted abruptly. Then, the sword pierced straight into his arm. The old man was horrified, and he hurriedly retreated. However, it was still a little too late. His right arm had been sliced off by Yi Xian's sword. The old man's eyes were filled with astonishment as he gazed at Yi Xian from afar. Meanwhile, Yi Xian suddenly vanished on the spot. Hiss! A blood-red ray of light tore through the surroundings. The old man's pupils constricted abruptly. At this moment, he'd finally realized what the problem was. It wasn't that Yi Xian was too strong, it was that sword in Yi Xian's hand that was too terrifying. It was too sharp. The old man didn't dare to think too much about it because Yi Xian had charged over to him and slashed down. The old man was just about to counterattack when his pupils constricted abruptly. It wasn't a single strike. It was 3 strikes. One for the past, one for the future, and one for the present. 3 strikes had converged into one. The old man was horrified. He didn't dare go head-on against it, and he immediately withdrew a pitch-black shield and placed it in front of him. The sword descended. Bang! The giant shield shattered, and in the next moment, the old man was sent flying by the attack. This time, the old man's body was completely obliterated, and only his soul remained. As soon as the old man stopped moving, Yi Xian's sword arrived once more. The old man's pupils constricted abruptly, and his face was ashen. A single strike to pin down the soul. The green profound sword entered the center of the old man's forehead and pinned down his soul. The old man was just about to speak when the green profound sword shook violently, and then it completely absorbed his soul. It was instantly obliterated. Countless experts from the spirit demon race who were hiding in the shadows were horrified, and they retreated explosively. All the experts above the boundless realm are dead? Who exactly is this young man? Meanwhile, Yi Xian was suddenly stunned because he noticed that Shao An's aura had vanished. In the next moment, Yi Xian suddenly roared furiously like a wild beast, "Get my Shao An out here! If I don't see Shao An in 3 breaths of time, then I'll start slaughtering the entire world." 1. As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly drew his sword and slashed. The green profound sword tore through the sky, and it covered an area of 500,000 kilometers. The world in an area of 500,000 kilometers was directly slashed into pieces, and boundless killing intent and evil energy instantly swept through the entire spirit demon world. Chapter 2189. Killing Intent. Monstrous killing intent. At this moment, countless experts throughout the spirit devil dimension were shocked. Whose killing intent is actually so strong? 2. Yi Xian's voice resounded once more. His voice was icy cold and completely emotionless. Meanwhile, a voice suddenly resounded from the sky, "This is the spirit devil dimension. How dare you act presumptuously here?" As soon as the voice resounded, the space above Yi Xian suddenly split apart, and then a towering pillar descended straight down. Bang! The space around Yi Xian seethed at this moment. A wisp of viciousness flashed through Yi Xian's eyes, and then the green profound sword in his grasp suddenly vanished. Bang! A blood-red ray of light suddenly slashed down onto the towering pillar. Rumble! In an instant, the pillar exploded apart and transformed into countless pieces that rained down to the ground. The green profound sword continued forward and slashed into that unknown expanse of space. Bang! Suddenly, that unknown expanse of space exploded apart, and then an old man retreated repeatedly. The old man's pupils constricted as soon as he stopped moving. He swiftly raised his head and was about to attack, but a sword had pierced through the center of his forehead. At the same time, Yi Xian appeared in front of him. Yi Xian held the green profound sword with his right hand while a ferocious expression appeared on his face. He slowly exerted force with his right hand, and then he stirred the sword lightly. Hiss! An enormous and blood-red hole was instantly torn open between the old man's brows. Moreover, the old man couldn't move at all, because he was suppressed by the green profound sword. Right at this moment, a terrifying aura suddenly assaulted Yi Xian from behind. Meanwhile, Yi Xian swiftly drew the green profound sword, turned around, and slashed. Bang! An expanse of light shook the surroundings, and then an afterimage was blasted back. However, Yi Xian had retreated over 1 kilometer as well. As soon as he stopped moving, the green profound sword in his hand had vanished. Slash the future. A middle-aged man was fighting Yi Xian in the distance. The middle-aged man frowned slightly when he saw the sword in Yi Xian's hand vanish. In the next moment, his pupils constricted, and he swiftly raised his arms to block. Bang! The sword light shattered, and the middle-aged man was sent flying several thousand feet away. When the middle-aged man stopped, Yi Xian's green profound sword had already stabbed into the old man's soul, and his soul was instantly absorbed by the green profound sword. The middle-aged man's face darkened at the sight of this. The middle-aged man was about to speak when Yi Xian raised his hand and slashed out. Chi! The sound of sword energy tearing rang out. The middle-aged man's pupils suddenly shrank. He waved his hands and a huge shield appeared in front of him. Boom! The giant shield instantly shattered, and the middle-aged man was forced to retreat. When the middle-aged man stopped, his body shattered. The middle-aged man was horrified and immediately roared, "This kid is so terrifying. Quick, go to the southern region and invite the Great Spirit Fiend Ancestor. Invite the Great Spirit Demon Ancestor." The expressions of some of the Spirit Demon race experts changed drastically when they heard the middle-aged man. This middle-aged man was a peak quantitative change realm expert. Even this was not a match for this young man. In the distance, Yi Xian suddenly disappeared. The middle-aged man's pupils constricted, and then he immediately turned around and fled. He was extremely swift, and he vanished into the horizon in the blink of an eye. Yi Xian didn't pursue the middle-aged man, and he charged towards the nearby spirit demon race experts instead. The expressions of the spirit demon race experts changed drastically when they witnessed this scene. How could they possibly defeat someone who wasn't even a peak quantitative change realm expert? Some of the spirit demon race experts immediately turned around and fled. However, how could their speed compare to Yi Xian? The green profound sword tore through the battlefield, and then a few thousand heads instantly shot into the sky. It was an extremely bloody scene. Meanwhile, Xiao Ta suddenly said, "Young master, I've sensed young mistress Xiao An's aura. Head to the right." Yi Xian suddenly stopped, and then he swiftly turned around and flew up on his sword. In the blink of an eye, he vanished into the horizon. The middle-aged man suddenly stopped in the distance, and his expression instantly changed drastically when he saw Yi Xian charging towards that direction. He hurriedly roared furiously, "Stop him! Stop him!" However, no one moved. All the experts of the spirit demon race gazed at the middle-aged man. Would anyone dare to stop him? Damn it! Aren't you tired of living? The middle-aged man's expression was extremely unsightly. He hesitated for a moment before he said, "All of us will die if he's allowed to destroy the formation." As soon as he finished speaking, he charged towards Yi Xian who was in the distance. Around 10 minutes later, Yi Xian arrived before an old city. The city was extremely strange, and the entire city was enveloped in thick black clouds. Xiao Ta spoke solemnly, "Young master, it's inside." Yi Xian gazed at the old city. Meanwhile, an old man appeared in front of Yi Xian, and the old man stared at Yi Xian. "Who are you?" Yi Xian suddenly charged forward and slashed down with his sword. The old man's eyes narrowed slightly. He flipped his palm, and then a pitch-black iron rod appeared in his grasp. In the next moment, he suddenly tapped it forward. Bang! This tap caused the space at the top of the iron rod to sink down, and it formed a strange and enormous vortex. Meanwhile, Yi Xian's sword slashed down. Bang! The vortex shattered, and then the iron rod was instantly obliterated. The old man's pupils constricted, and then a sword arrived before his forehead. The old man suddenly stomped his right foot on the ground, and then he smashed his fist down. Bang! The sword was forced to a stop, but the old man's entire right arm shattered. The old man was dumbfounded. He gazed at the green profound sword in Yi Xian's hand, and his voice trembled. You. What is that? Why is it so terrifying? In the distance, Yi Xian didn't waste his breath at all. He just transformed into a ray of blood-red light and vanished on the spot. The old man's expression changed drastically. Not again. As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly vanished mysteriously on the spot. A moment later, the space around him split apart, and then rays of black light surged out like an ocean. At this moment, Yi Xian swung his sword fiercely. Bang! The black light in the surroundings was instantly obliterated, and space returned to normal. At the same time, the old man was blasted back against the city wall. The old man had just come into contact with the city wall when the wall shook violently, but it didn't shatter. The green profound sword destroyed all techniques. The old man who'd collided against the city wall was completely stunned. He'd actually been bashed up. A dignified expert at the peak of the quantitative change realm had actually been bashed up by a young man from the outside world. It was an extraordinary humiliation. The old man looked up at Yi Xian, and then his pupils constricted in the next moment. After that, a sword stabbed through his throat and nailed him to the city wall. Yi Xian didn't attack again, and he looked up at the city wall instead. He saw two people there, a middle-aged man and a woman. It was the two of them who'd taken Anlancio away just now. The woman from the spirit demon race, Alan, gazed at Yi Xian with an icy cold gaze. She hadn't expected that Yi Xian would actually chase her all the way to the spirit demon race, and she'd never imagined that his strength would actually be so terrifying. Yi Xian opened his palm, and the green profound sword directly absorbed the old man's soul. A moment later, the sword flew back into Yi Xian's grasp, and he pointed it slowly at Alan. I'll annihilate 10 of your clans today. As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly vanished on the spot. At the instant he vanished, Xiao Ta had snuck into the city. Alan's eyes narrowed slightly. This is the spirit demon race, not the wastelands. As soon as she finished speaking, she vanished on the spot like a ghost. Meanwhile, a cold ray of light suddenly appeared at Yi Xian's throat. It was even swifter than Yi Xian. However, what Alan never expected was that Yi Xian actually did not dodge or evade, allowing her dagger to slash at his throat. But in the next moment, Alan's pupils suddenly constricted. Immediately after, a stretch of sword light exploded on her head, and Alan was instantly slashed back onto the city wall. Alan had just stopped, and on top of her head, a piece of hard scale shattered into scraps. Alan was rather dumbfounded. Shattered. This scale was the scale shed by the spirit demon race's strongest demonic beast, the spirit demon god. It was incomparably hard, and boundless realm powerhouses were completely unable to injure it. But at this moment, it was actually shattered by a sword just like that? Seemingly thinking of something, Lan looked at the green profound sword in Yi Xian's hand in the distance, and her expression was incomparably ugly. Sword. It's this sword. Beside her, that middle-aged man said solemnly, Lan, go to the demon city. Lan stared fixedly at the distant Yi Xian who was akin to a blood man. I'm not afraid of him. I'm going to kill him. The middle-aged man said angrily, Lan, haven't you seen the situation clearly? This person has the support of this sword, and his strength has already far surpassed the boundless realm. Moreover, we can't allow him to attack here and destroy the array formation here. Otherwise, we won't be able to absolve ourselves of blame even if we die 10,000 times. Lan still wanted to say something, but at this moment, Yi Xian suddenly vanished on the spot. Lan's pupils constricted abruptly, and she suddenly grasped the dagger in her hand and slashed forward abruptly. Swish! This slash directly tore apart the spacetime in front of her, and this saber slashed directly onto Yi Xian's green profound sword. Crack! Following a clear sound of breaking resounded out, that dagger directly shattered, and Lan was directly slashed back several tens of kilometers by this sword of Yi Xian's. Lan, who stopped, had eyes filled with disbelief. How is this possible? This dagger of mine was personally forged by a spirit god master. How could it possibly shatter? Right at this moment, that middle-aged man suddenly roared furiously. Watch out! His voice had just resounded out when a sword suddenly appeared in front of Lan. Lan's pupils constricted abruptly, and she suddenly flipped her palm over. A small black seal directly blocked in front of her, and a terrifying demonic beast roar resounded from within the small seal. It shook the heavens and the earth. Bang! The green profound sword was forced to a stop by this roar, but in the next moment, a blood-red ray of light erupted, and the small seal directly exploded apart. The sword continued forward and slashed towards Lan. Lan's pupils constricted, and at this moment, there was finally fear in her eyes. I can't defeat him. At this moment, she finally understood what had happened. Why is this person in front of me so strong? Lan revealed an expression of terror as she gazed at the sword that was getting closer and closer to her, and she was astounded to the extreme. In the next moment, Yi Xian's sword was already pressed against the center of her forehead. Right at this moment, an extremely terrifying aura suddenly assaulted Yi Xian from behind. At the same time, a furious roar resounded from behind Yi Xian. Bastard! If even a single hair on the old man's daughter is missing, then this old man will eat your entire clan. Lan stared fixedly at Yi Xian. My father is the spirit demon ancestor of South Mountain. If you dare harm a single hair on my head. Yi Xian suddenly withdrew his sword. In the next moment, he grabbed up Lan's hair and suddenly lifted her up. Rip! Lan's peerlessly beautiful head was forcibly lifted up by him. It was incomparably bloody. Chapter 2190. How presumptuous! How presumptuous! The old man wants you to suffer a fate worse than death. The spirit demon ancestor suddenly roared furiously. A moment later, he charged forward, and the area where he and Yi Xian resided was instantly transformed into a huge spatial abyss. His strength was too terrifying. A ferocious expression appeared on Yi Xian's face when he saw the old man charge at him. He stomped his right foot against the ground, and then he transformed into a ray of light that vanished on the spot. Hiss! The dark spatial abyss was instantly torn apart by Yi Xian's sword strike. Meanwhile, the spirit demon ancestor's fist smashed against Yi Xian's green sword. Bang! A blood-red ray of light shattered as Yi Xian was blasted into the sky. As soon as his figure stopped moving, the space behind him was instantly obliterated, and powerful force was ceaselessly destroying everything. As for the spirit demon ancestor, he was just about to attack again when he noticed to his astonishment that his right hand had split apart and was bleeding incessantly. The spirit demon ancestor was shocked, and his expression was extremely unsightly as he looked up at the green sword in Yi Xian's grasp. A divine artifact. Yi Xian had his sword held vertically against the center of his forehead while his terrifying aura surged like a tidal wave. The mad demon bloodline. Even though he hadn't gone completely mad at this moment, the formidable energy of his bloodline was still providing him with an endless supply of energy. Moreover, his killing intent and vicious energy were growing stronger and stronger. Meanwhile, the spirit demon ancestor suddenly gazed at Lan's corpse that wasn't too far away from Yi Xian. The latter's head had been separated from her body. Moreover, her soul had been completely obliterated by Yi Xian. There was no chance for her to survive. The spirit demon ancestor's face instantly warped when he witnessed this scene. The old man intends to eat you alive. As soon as he finished speaking, his figure flashed and arrived in the air above Yi Xian. A moment later, he spun around and slammed his palm down. As soon as his palm descended, the entire expanse of space in an area of a few tens of thousands of kilometers sunk into an enormous black vortex. The power contained in this palm was enough to shatter the entire world. Down below, Yi Xian raised his head while a vicious expression flashed in his eyes. He suddenly loosened his grip, and the azure profound sword transformed into a sword light that shot into the sky. Buzz! A sword cry resounded throughout the entire spirit demon realm. The Qingxian sword directly cut into the concave black vortex. There was a moment of silence. Boom! An expanse of sword light suddenly exploded out from within the black vortex, causing the heavens and the earth and the surroundings to tremble violently before cracking apart like a spider web. Up in the sky, the spirit demon ancestor's face turned ferocious as he charged at Yi Xian and punched at Yi Xian's head, intending to crush Yi Xian to pieces. Yi Xian was not to be outdone. Without dodging or evading, he suddenly drew his sword and slashed. 3 swords as one. Boom! An expanse of sword light shook the surroundings. In the next moment, the old man was blasted 3 kilometers back, and he'd just stopped moving when another ray of sword light slashed towards him. The old man suddenly roared furiously as he suddenly pressed his palms forward, and a black light surged out. In an instant, the heavens and the earth darkened as if night had descended. Boom! The sword light was directly obliterated by this formidable force. Meanwhile, Yi Xian had already retreated 3 kilometers back. The spirit demon ancestor looked at Yi Xian in the distance, and there was a trace of seriousness in his eyes at this moment. A swordsman. When did such a super swordsman appear in the wastelands? Why have I never heard of him before? In the distance, Yi Xian slowly closed his eyes, and the azure profound sword in his hand trembled violently. In the blink of an eye, the spirit demon ancestor's pupils constricted. Slash! As soon as he finished speaking, his body became illusory. But right at this moment, Yi Xian suddenly attacked. Slash the present. They attacked at the same time. The spirit demon ancestor's pupils constricted, and he hurriedly spread open his right hand and pressed it down lightly. As soon as he pressed down, a terrifying force suddenly surged out from all around him. Boundless power. However, this was boundless power that had undergone a qualitative change. Boom! As soon as Yi Xian's sword arrived, it was suppressed and distorted by this terrifying force. But in the next moment, it was shattered by the azure profound sword. The sword pierced straight at the spirit demon ancestor. The spirit demon ancestor's pupils constricted, and he hastily crossed his arms to block the attack. Boom! The spirit demon ancestor was pushed back several thousands of meters by Yi Xian's sword strike. Yi Xian was about to attack again when an afterimage suddenly charged at him from his right. Yi Xian spun around and slashed down with his sword. Hiss! A sword light tore through the world. Boom! The afterimage was pushed back repeatedly by Yi Xian's sword strike. It was a middle-aged spirit demon ancestor in a black robe. The middle-aged man stared fixedly at Yi Xian with a solemn expression. Who the hell are you? In fact, he was a little confused at this moment. Where did this swordsman come from? Did the wastelands come for revenge? But as far as he knew, there wasn't such a strong swordsman in the wasteland. It doesn't matter who he is. The spirit demon ancestor said fiercely, this person came to my spirit demon world and slaughtered my clansmen. He even killed the old man's daughter. The old man wants him to beg for death. As soon as he finished speaking, he slowly soared into the sky, pressed his palms together, and closed his eyes. Demon arrival. Boom! The spirit demon ancestor's body shook violently. In the next moment, an enormous head appeared behind him, and beneath the head was a 30,000-meter tall body. Demon arrival. It was a supreme divine ability. As soon as this illusory figure appeared, a terrifying pressure descended from the sky like the sky was collapsing, and the entire world trembled. Countless spirit demon clan experts retreated hastily, not daring to stay here. Because the aura was too terrifying. Just the aura alone was enough to crush the world. In the distance, Yi Xian held the sword in his right hand with a calm expression. Meanwhile, the spirit demon ancestor suddenly pointed a finger at Yi Xian with fury. Die, ant. As soon as he finished speaking, the illusory figure behind him raised its right palm and slapped it down at Yi Xian. As soon as this palm descended, the world started to seethe and burn. It was utterly unable to endure the might of this palm. Before this palm, Yi Xian was like a small boat amidst tempestuous waves, and he was tiny like an ant. Yi Xian's expression was calm, and he suddenly raised his thumb lightly as the palm descended. Hiss! The green profound sword suddenly flew forward, and then it was a ray of blood-red light that shot through the sky and slashed down on the palm. Bang! In an instant, the enormous palm that could hold up the sky was directly torn apart like tofu, and it wasn't just that, the enormous image was instantly shattered and obliterated. Bang! The spirit demon ancestor who was beneath the illusory figure was blasted over 30 kilometers away. The spirit demon ancestor was stunned after he stopped moving. The spirit demon ancestor gazed at Yi Xian with disbelief on his face. How could this be possible? My demon descent was dealt with just like that? How could this be possible? Meanwhile, the middle-aged man suddenly spoke in a low voice, that sword in his hand. The spirit demon ancestor gazed at the green profound sword in Yi Xian's hand with an extremely unsightly expression. At this moment, he'd realized that the core of the problem was this sword. The middle-aged man suddenly turned to look at the man nearby. It was the man who'd brought Lancio to the spirit demon territory with Alan. The middle-aged man stared at the man. Mosen, what happened? The man called Mosen hesitated for a moment, and then he told the middle-aged man everything that had happened. The middle-aged man's face was gloomy after he finished listening. Where's that woman now? Mosen spoke in a low voice, sacrificing the 10 demon kings. The middle-aged man's face instantly turned unsightly, and he turned to look at the city. As if he'd thought of something, he looked at Yi Xian again. When he saw Yi Xian standing there without moving, a trace of unease arose in his heart. Something's not right. Someone, gather all the experts here immediately. Mosen was shocked, and he hurriedly took out a talisman and crushed it. In the next moment, countless experts from the entire spirit demon territory rushed over madly. The middle-aged man looked at Yi Xian in the distance. Get out of the formation. No one is allowed to approach Lin City. Lin City. This was the current forbidden area of the spirit demon territory. Because the top experts of the spirit demon territory were in deep slumber here. These experts were the experts who'd fought the great wilderness all those years ago. All of them had been heavily injured and were recuperating now. They absolutely couldn't be disturbed. In a short period of time, thousands of spirit demon territory experts had gathered in the sky above Lin City. Moreover, there were dozens of mysterious grand formations around Lin City. An impregnable fortress. The middle-aged man looked at Yi Xian in the distance, and the unease in his heart grew stronger. What is he waiting for? In the distance, the spirit demon ancestor said fiercely, City Lord Yifeng, what are you waiting for? Hurry up and give the order to kill this person. Yifeng said angrily, can we kill him? It wasn't that he didn't want to, but with their current strength, they couldn't kill the youth in front of them at all. This youth's strength was too terrifying. The spirit demon ancestor's face was gloomy. Then what are you waiting for? Yifeng glanced coldly at the spirit demon ancestor, and then turned to look at Yi Xian in the distance. Your Excellency, you. Right at this moment, Yi Xian, who was originally motionless in the distance, suddenly turned his head and looked towards Lin City. In the next moment, Tiny Pagoda's voice suddenly sounded out in his mind. Young Lord, I've found young Lord Shaoan. She's in a very dangerous situation. Come quickly. The voice was trembling. Shaoan. Yi Xian's figure trembled slightly when he heard this, and then he transformed into a ray of light that shot towards Lin City. Yifeng's expression instantly changed drastically when he witnessed this scene. Stop him. As soon as he finished speaking, countless spirit demon race experts suddenly charged at Yi Xian. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly turned around and swung his sword. Hiss! In an instant, a few dozen heads shot into the sky. Meanwhile, the Lin city's formations suddenly activated, and then a few dozen beams of light shot towards Yi Xian. A wisp of ferocity flashed through Yi Xian's eyes, and then he flashed forward and slashed down with his sword. Hiss! The dozens of beams of light were instantly obliterated. Meanwhile, Yi Feng stood in front of Yi Xian. His expression was ferocious as he clenched his right hand into a fist, and then he suddenly charged forward and smashed his fist towards Yi Xian's face. Meanwhile, Xiao Ta's voice suddenly resounded in Yi Xian's mind once more. Young lord, you. Come quickly. You. Be fucking quick. His voice trembled, and it carried a trace of terror. Chapter 2191. Yi Xian panicked once more when he heard Xiao Ta's voice. At this moment, he disregarded everything. Yi Xian suddenly charged towards Lin City. Yi Feng's expression instantly changed drastically, and he stood in front of Yi Xian again. He was just about to attack when a sword pierced through the center of his forehead. The green profound sword. The green profound sword that had activated the energy of time. He'd instantly annihilated a quantity transformation realm expert with a single strike. In the next moment, all the formations in the sky above Lin City were destroyed, and the entire city wall vanished into thin air. Meanwhile, Yi Xian had charged into the city. Behind him, the spirit demon ancestor and the others were petrified on the spot. He was instantly annihilated. Yi Feng was instantly annihilated. The spirit demon ancestor's mind went blank. He seemed to have thought of something, and his body trembled slightly before he hurriedly charged towards Lin City. In the distant city, Yi Xian stopped. At this moment, he was standing before an altar, and he saw Anlanxiu there. At this moment, Anlanxiu was lying on the altar with a pale face, and her soul was so weak that it was practically non-existent. Xiao Ta hurriedly said, "Young master, young mistress and soul has been restrained by a mysterious formation, and they've been constantly absorbing her soul. Quickly, quickly let little Hun." Meanwhile, Yi Xian's green profound sword suddenly vanished, and then it appeared in front of Anlanxiu's forehead. Bang! The green profound sword pierced into Anlanxiu's body, and a powerful and mysterious force was instantly severed. The altar in the distance trembled slightly, and then a terrifying aura seeped out from it. Little Hun suddenly said, "Young master, I've restrained young mistress and soul. However, she's very weak right now, and she needs to recuperate." Yi Xian walked slowly over to Anlanxiu's side, and then Anlanxiu slowly opened her eyes. She was slightly stunned when she saw Yi Xian, and then she said softly, "You're here?" Yi Xian slowly squatted down, grabbed Anlanxiu's hand, and spoke gently, "I'm sorry I was late." Anlanxiu shook her head slightly, "I dragged you into this." Yi Xian shook his head. "Don't be so polite." Anlanxiu was slightly stunned. She looked at Yi Xian who was covered in blood, and she suddenly had an indescribable complicated feeling in her heart. He still cared about her. At this time, the spirit demon ancestor suddenly appeared not far behind Yi Xian with a group of spirit demon world's experts. The spirit demon ancestor looked at Yi Xian with a trace of fear in his eyes. Yi Xian's strength had slightly exceeded his expectations. Yi Xian said softly, "Heal your wounds first." Anlanxiu nodded slightly. "All right." Yi Xian directly sent Anlanxiu to Xiao Ta. Xiao Ta hurriedly took out those heavenly treasures of Yi Xian, as well as the medicinal pills that Yang Nianxue had left for Yi Xian. In front of the altar, Yi Xian turned around and looked at the spirit demon ancestor. What did she do wrong? The spirit demon ancestor stared at Yi Xian. "It's her honor to be eaten by my spirit demon clan." Yi Xian nodded slightly. "Spirit demon clan. I understand." As soon as his voice fell, he vanished on the spot. Boom! He had completely entered a state of madness. At this moment, Yi Xian's aura instantly skyrocketed. Endless killing intent and hostility swept through the entire Lin city. In the distance, the spirit demon ancestor's pupils shrank abruptly. He could smell the scent of death. He couldn't block this sword. Die. That was the only thought in the spirit demon ancestor's mind. However, he didn't sit still and wait for death. He clenched his right hand and punched forward with all his strength. The punch landed directly on Yi Xian's profound azure sword. It was a head-on clash. Chi! Yi Xian's profound azure sword pierced through the spirit demon ancestor's right hand without any resistance and pierced his chest along his arm. Boom! The spirit demon ancestor's body shook violently, and his soul swiftly vanished. The spirit demon ancestor stared blankly at Yi Xian, who was inches away from him. Yi Xian slashed with his sword. Chi! The spirit demon ancestor's head flew off. The next moment, the profound azure sword in Yi Xian's hand flew out. In the blink of an eye, the heads of the spirit demon clan experts in the field flew off one after another. Instant kill. In a short time, all the spirit demon clan experts in the field were slaughtered. Moreover, all of them were instant kills. No one could withstand a single strike from Yi Xian. However, Yi Xian didn't stop there. He suddenly leaped into the sky, his lips curling into a ferocious smile, and he hurled the sword down with his right hand. Chi! The profound azure sword shot down like a meteor, leaving a trail of blood in its wake. In an instant, the entire universe boiled and burned. Bury the spirit demon realm. Below, some of the spirit demon clan experts hiding in the dark were filled with terror. Was this young man going to destroy the entire spirit demon realm? If the sword fell, even if it couldn't bury the spirit demon realm, it would definitely heavily injure it. Right at this moment, one of the sacrificial altars in the distant Lin city trembled slightly. In the next moment, a shadow flashed out from within it, and in the blink of an eye, the shadow had already arrived in the horizon. He suddenly punched out, causing a fist print to sweep up and intercept Yi Xian's sword strike. Boom! That fist print actually blocked Yi Xian's Qingxian sword. In an instant, a terrifying force erupted from the point where the fist and the sword came into contact. This force swept through the entire world like a tidal wave. Boom! At this moment, the world around them boiled and then began to burn. Below, the figure gradually solidified. It was a middle-aged man dressed in black robes. With a sudden sweep of his right hand, the burning flames were swept away. One of the 10 great demon kings, King Qi. He had once conquered the great wilderness. He was a true super expert. King Qi looked at Yi Xian in the sky, his face expressionless. Slaughter my spirit demon realm? Are you worthy? Up in the sky, Yi Xian suddenly disappeared from where he stood. Within the profound azure sword, the power of time silently activated. Down below, King Qi narrowed his eyes. He half-squatted and put his palms together. In the next moment, he punched out repeatedly. In just an instant, he had punched at least tens of thousands of times. In an instant, heavy fist seals shook the heavens. Before everyone's eyes, Yi Xian's sword easily tore through the heavy fist seals. In the next moment, sword light flashed, and the profound azure sword pierced through King Qi's forehead. Qi! King Qi's eyes widened in disbelief. Your sword, Yi Xian suddenly appeared in front of King Qi. He thrust his sword forward, and the entire sword sank into the ground. Am I worthy? King Qi stared at Yi Xian. I just came out of seclusion, and my strength isn't even at 60% of my peak. Yi Xian suddenly slashed out. King Qi's head flew over 1 kilometer into the distance. The experts of the spirit demon race who were hiding in the shadows were filled with disbelief. One of the 10 great demon kings, King Qi, has been killed just like that? Yi Xian suddenly leaped up, and he appeared in the starry sky a moment later. After that, he suddenly tossed the profound azure sword down. The sword tore through the sky, and it carried the powerful energy of time with it. The expressions of all the experts of the spirit demon race below instantly changed. The sword was extremely swift, and it stabbed into the ground in the blink of an eye. Bang! In an instant, the entire spirit demon world trembled, and a powerful force erupted from the depths of the ground like a wave. Rumble. At this moment, the entire spirit demon world shook violently like an earthquake. The quintessence of the spirit demon world had been destroyed. A ferocious expression appeared on Yi Xian's face as he pressed his right hand down towards the abyss below. Die. The profound azure sword shook violently within the abyss, and then it pierced deep into the earth. Bang! The depths of the earth veins suddenly exploded. Immediately after, a large amount of lava shot up into the sky from the ground and into the clouds. Rumble. The entire spirit demon world started to shatter. Countless earth veins were destroyed, spirit energy dried up, and monstrous rays of light raged through the world. All the experts of the spirit demon race were horrified. This young man really intends to destroy the spirit demon world. Meanwhile, a terrifying aura suddenly shot into the sky from Lin City, and then a middle-aged man walked out slowly into the sky. King Yen. The experts of the spirit demon race exclaimed in secret. King Yen was the leader of the 10 great demon kings. King Yan's wife gazed at Yi Xian. When did a swordsman like you appear in the grand wilderness? Yi Xian opened his palm, and a ray of light descended into his grasp. After the light dispersed, the profound azure sword appeared again. Yi Xian looked down at King Yen with monstrous rage. You hurt my lover, so I'll slaughter all your cities. As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly vanished on the spot. The ray of light shot down like a shooting star. It slashed straight at King Yen. King Yen narrowed his eyes. He opened his palm, and a spear suddenly appeared in his hand. At the same time, a damaged ancient shield appeared in his left hand. Immortal subduing spear. God-burying shield. This was no ordinary item. It was a super divine item of the spirit demon race. King Yen suddenly took a step forward, and the spear in his hand shot out like an arrow, instantly piercing the tip of Yi Xian's profound azure sword. It was a head-on clash. Boom! The moment the spear and sword came into contact, Yi Xian was instantly blasted back into the depths of space, and King Yen also returned to his original spot. When he came to a stop, his expression instantly turned solemn. Because his immortal subduing spear had cracked. Cracked. King Yen narrowed his eyes and looked up at the profound azure sword in Yi Xian's hand. What sword is that? How could it crack my immortal subduing spear? His immortal subduing spear had accompanied him in battle for countless years, and it had never cracked. Even Xing Huang, the #1 expert of the Grand Wilderness, had failed to shatter it. But now, it had actually cracked. For the first time, King Yan's eyes turned solemn. He stared fixedly at Yi Xian in the depths of space. Fight! As soon as he finished speaking, he clenched the fairy vanquishing spear tightly in his right hand. The fairy vanquishing spear shook violently, and a terrifying battle will swept out of it. In an instant, the battle will dispersed Yi Xian's evil aura and murderous intent in the air. The powerful battle intent swept through the cosmos, causing the world to tremble. At the same time, after the powerful battle intent appeared, the cracked immortal subduing spear actually recovered. The battle intent was inextinguishable. The immortal subduing spear was everlasting. The ancient burial shield was everlasting. King Yen stared straight at Yi Xian in space. My spirit demon race has existed for millions of years. How can it be destroyed so easily? With that, he pointed the immortal subduing spear at Yi Xian. Come and fight. We will not rest until death. Come and fight. The two words were like a deafening clap of thunder. In the sky, Yi Xian slowly closed his eyes. His expression was incomparably savage. Shaoan, watch carefully. If the spirit demon race hurts even a hair on your head, I'll slaughter his entire race. With that, he flipped his right hand, and the green profound sword suddenly surged with a terrifying force into his body. Boom! Yi Xian attained immortality on the spot. At that moment, another terrifying force surged into Yi Xian's body. Boom! Yi Xian attained boundless realm on the spot. In the sky, Yi Xian looked down at King Yen with a sinister smile. Why must we not rest until death? I'll kill you with one strike. With that, he suddenly stomped his right foot and stabbed down with his sword. One strike to decide life and death. Buzz! With that strike, countless sword cries resounded across the universe. P.S. Please give me a ticket. Also, you guys scold me every day and call me weak. Can you praise me? I want to hear you guys praise someone. Chapter 2192. Deciding life and death with one strike. Qing Er's words echoed in his ears. With this strike, the enemy's life and death are in my hands. If I want them to live, they live. If I want them dead, they die. In the sky, Yi Xian slashed down with his sword, tearing everything apart. Below, Monarch Yen narrowed his eyes. Facing Yi Xian's terrifying strike, there was no fear in his eyes. On the contrary, his fighting spirit intensified. Slash! Monarch Yen stomped his right foot and soared into the sky. Chi! In an instant, heaven and earth were torn apart. The two clashed head-on. After a moment of silence, boom! Suddenly, a wave of sword light exploded in the sky. In the next moment, a figure plummeted from the sky and smashed into the ground. When he hit the ground collapsed into a bottomless abyss. This person was Monarch Yen. After Monarch Yen crashed into the ground, his body was destroyed and his soul dissipated at a visible speed. The immortal subduing spear in his hand was broken into two. The immortal subduing spear trembled slightly and emitted a mournful hum. Monarch Yen looked at Yi Xian standing in the sky, his eyes filled with confusion. What sword is that? Yi Xian suddenly appeared in front of Monarch Yen. Without a word, he thrust his sword into the space between Monarch Yan's eyebrows. Boom! Monarch Yan's soul trembled violently and then rapidly dissipated. At this moment, the ancient burial shield beside him suddenly trembled violently and smashed toward Yi Xian, protecting its master. Yi Xian turned and slashed. Boom! The ancient burial ground shield shattered, but it wasn't completely broken. It only split into two pieces. There was no divine item under the azure profound sword. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly turned his head. Not far away to his right, there stood a woman dressed in a black robe. The woman looked a little old, and there were some scribbles on her face. She held a dark red walking stick in her hand, which seemed to be condensed from blood. It was extremely alluring. A spirit demon divine master. She held an extremely high position in the spirit demon race. The spirit demon divine master looked at Yi Xian. Who forged that sword of yours? Yi Xian raised his hand and slashed. A sword light slashed straight at divine priest spirit demon. However, just as the sword light arrived, the spirit demon divine master disappeared without a trace. Yi Xian frowned slightly. The spirit demon divine master stared at Yi Xian. This sword is extraordinary, and it wasn't forged by a mortal. Yi Xian suddenly disappeared on the spot. The spirit demon priest suddenly waved his right hand. Boom! A wave of sword light shattered, and Yi Xian was instantly knocked back to his original spot. And on his chest, there was a blood-red handprint. The spirit demon divine master glared at Yi Xian. I've checked just now. You're not from the great wilderness. Since you're not, why are you targeting the spirit demon race? The green profound sword in Yi Xian's hand trembled slightly, and a powerful force suddenly surged out from the green profound sword. The spirit demon divine master narrowed his eyes. The power of time. Someone is actually able to fuse the supreme power of time into the sword. Who are you? Yi Xian suddenly vanished on the spot. A cold glow flashed through the spirit demon divine master's eyes, and she suddenly stabbed the walking stick in her right hand forward. Bang! The wave of sword light shattered, and Yi Xian was blasted over 10 kilometers away. However, the walking stick in the spirit demon divine master's hand cracked open as well. The spirit demon divine master's expression instantly became extremely unsightly when he saw the crack on the walking stick. The spirit demon divine master raised his head to look at Yi Xian, and then Yi Xian suddenly slashed down with his sword. 3 swords combined into one. The spirit demon divine master's eyes narrowed slightly. Child's play. As soon as she finished speaking, she flicked her sleeve, and the space here warped. A moment later, Yi Xian suddenly retreated repeatedly, and he moved over 1 kilometer back. When Yi Xian stopped moving, the spirit demon divine master suddenly charged forward and grabbed Yi Xian's throat. After that, a powerful force pressed down on Yi Xian and smashed him against the ground. However, at this moment, a dreadful power suddenly erupted from Yi Xian's body. Bang! Blood erupted like a tide. The spirit demon divine master's eyes were opened, and then she tilted her head slightly to the side. As soon as she did, a sword brushed past her nose. She dodged it by a hair's breadth. Yi Xian hurriedly withdrew his sword after his attack failed, but it was still a little too late. He suddenly felt like his stomach had been struck by an iron hammer. Bang! Yi Xian was blasted flying. Meanwhile, the spirit demon divine master clawed at Yi Xian from afar, and the space where Yi Xian resided warped. Yi Xian raised his hand and swung his sword. Hiss! Even space was shattered. The spirit demon divine master frowned slightly at the sight of this. Your sword. Suddenly, Yi Xian turned around and transformed into a ray of sword light that vanished into the horizon. The spirit demon divine master was slightly stunned. He fled. In the next moment, his pupils constricted. Yi Xian didn't flee but went to the demon city. The spirit demon world's capital city was a place where experts were nurtured. The spirit demon divine master's expression instantly became unsightly. How dare you! As soon as he finished speaking, he vanished on the spot. Meanwhile, Yi Xian had arrived in the sky above the demon city. He didn't waste his breath and suddenly drew his sword and slashed. A ray of sword energy slashed down from the sky and into the city. Hiss! The sword energy swept across thousands of miles. In an instant, the defensive formation of the entire city was torn apart like a piece of paper, and the sword energy slashed into the city. Bang! The entire city was instantly split into 2, and the shrill cries of countless spirit demon experts resounded. In an instant, the entire city was like purgatory. Meanwhile, the spirit demon divine master appeared. She was about to speak, but Yi Xian charged into the city. In the next moment, bloody heads flew into the sky. In front of Yi Xian, those spirit demon powerhouses did not even have the strength to fight back. The spirit demon divine master's expression was ferocious. She suddenly vanished on the spot, and a bolt of lightning tore through the battlefield. In the distance, Yi Xian suddenly stopped. With a thought, the azure sword transformed into a sword shield that blocked in front of him. Bang! The bolt of lightning struck the azure sword shield, causing it to tremble violently. Countless bolts of lightning shot out, but the azure sword was completely unharmed. The spirit demon divine master frowned at this scene. This sword can be used for defense? Yi Xian paid no attention to the spirit demon divine master. He suddenly turned around and charged into the city. Slaughter the entire city. Slaughter 10,000 cities. He wasn't joking. It was fine to hit him, Yi Xian, but not his family. Not even the emperor himself. If you dare hurt my family, I'll slaughter 10,000 of your cities. The spirit demon divine master's expression instantly turned ferocious when she saw Yi Xian going to slaughter another city. Fight me if you have the ability. However, Yi Xian paid no attention to her. Do I need you to tell me if I can defeat you? It's precisely because I can't defeat you that I'll fight you. The The spirit demon divine master's expression instantly turned unsightly when she saw Yi Xian ignore her. Although she was stronger than Yi Xian had that sword. She couldn't do anything to Yi Xian, at least not for a while. Moreover, Yi Xian refused to fight her. The spirit demon divine master had no choice but to stop Yi Xian because the top-rate experts of the spirit demon world were in deep slumber. Only she could stop Yi Xian. She charged towards Yi Xian. She had to keep Yi Xian busy. Yi Xian suddenly turned around and slashed down with his sword. An expanse of blood-red light exploded apart. Bang! Yi Xian retreated repeatedly. But in the next moment, countless swords suddenly flew out from within him. These swords weren't aimed at the spirit demon divine master but the surrounding experts of the spirit demon race. Even though these swords weren't the azure sword, they weren't something that ordinary experts could resist. After all, Yi Xian's cultivation had been forcefully raised by 2 realms. In an instant, countless shrill cries resounded. The spirit demon divine master had a savage expression on her face, and she was slightly exasperated. How shameless! You bully the weak and fear the strong. How shameless! Yi Xian paid no attention to the spirit demon divine master. He just turned around and charged towards the depths of the city. The spirit demon divine master roared furiously, "Come at me if you have the ability." As soon as she finished speaking, she charged towards Yi Xian. She was extremely swift, and she arrived behind Yi Xian in the blink of an eye. Meanwhile, Yi Xian suddenly turned around. He didn't draw his sword, and he just transformed the azure sword into a shield that blocked in front of him. Bang! A bolt of lightning directly exploded on the azure profound sword shield. The sword shield violently trembled and completely blocked that bolt of lightning. At this moment, Yi Xian noticed a problem. If he went head-on against the spirit demon divine master, he noticed that while the azure sword would be fine if he couldn't hold on, he wouldn't be able to. The spirit demon divine master was too strong, and if he exerted force as well, then the collision of their forces would result in an even greater force. Moreover, he couldn't resist that force at all. However, if he only focused on defense, then he noticed that the old woman couldn't do anything to him at all. A one-sided attack couldn't do anything to him. When he thought up to this point, a thought suddenly arose in Yi Xian's mind. However, he suppressed that thought. After all, it wasn't the time to create a martial technique. It was the time to kill. Kill until blood flowed like a river. Yi Xian collected his thoughts, turned around, and charged into the distance. The spirit demon divine master's expression turned sinister. She suddenly leaped into the air, and countless bolts of divine lightning flickered in the sky. In the distance, Yi Xian didn't care about her at all. I don't care about your ultimate move, I have the azure sword shield. I'll be invincible. In the sky, the spirit demon divine master opened her palm and silently chanted an incantation. Countless bolts of black divine lightning suddenly gathered in the sky above the demon city, and a terrifying pressure swept down from the sky. In an instant, the space within a radius of hundreds of thousands of miles began to boil like boiling water. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly felt that something was amiss. He quickly stopped and turned to look at the spirit demon divine master. The spirit demon divine master glared at Yi Xian, and her murderous intent was so intense that it seemed to materialize. Yi Xian said solemnly, "If you use this ultimate move, many spirit demons will die in the city. Are you sure you want to do this?" The spirit demon divine master said sinisterly, "What's the difference between you killing them and me killing them? It's all death, isn't it?" Yi Xian gave her a thumbs up, "You're a ruthless person." The spirit demon divine master didn't waste any more words. She suddenly pressed her hands down, and countless bolts of divine lightning swept down from the sky. The powerful pressure directly caused the entire demon city to tremble violently. With a thought, the azure sword shield blocked in front of Yi Xian, and he took out the small gun and aimed it at the spirit demon divine master. This time, he directly asked Xiao Ta to feed the small gun 10,000 star god veins. 10,000. It was still very painful. Just as Yi Xian was about to pull the trigger, Xiao Ta suddenly said, "Young lord, wait." Yi Xian frowned slightly. "Wait my ass, I'm going to blow this old woman up." Saying that, he was about to pull the trigger when Xiao Ta suddenly said angrily, "Blow your ass, you're holding the gun the wrong way again. Are you trying to blow yourself up so that I can inherit your legacy?" Yi Xian. Chapter 2193. He's holding it upside down. Yi Xian felt quite embarrassed. He wasn't very familiar with this thing. After all, he didn't understand it. Yi Xian hurriedly turned the gun around and pulled the trigger. Bang! A ray of white light suddenly surged out from the muzzle, and then the space in an area of 300 kilometers started seething. It was an extremely shocking scene. As for Yi Xian, he hurriedly used the azure sword to form a shield in front of him. Bang! Even with the protection of the Qingxian sword shield, the terrifying recoil still sent Yi Xian flying thousands of feet away. However, the azure profound sword shield did not move at all. There was no problem at all. The spirit demon divine master's pupils constricted when the ray of white light surged out. In an instant, countless bolts of divine lightning were destroyed. It was like crushing dry weeds. In the next moment, the ray of white light had arrived before her. The spirit demon divine master was shocked, and she swiftly waved her right hand, causing an energy lightning shield to appear in front of her. Bang! The energy lightning shield suddenly exploded. Rumble. The spirit demon divine master was blasted over 30 kilometers away. As soon as she stopped moving, her body cracked like a spider web. However, it didn't shatter completely. Obviously, her strength was extremely terrifying. However, the bullet didn't vanish. It pierced through the spirit demon divine master's stomach and vanished into the starry sky. Wherever the bullet passed, time and space were directly annihilated. As a result, a bottomless chasm of time and space appeared in the spirit demon realm. The spirit demon divine master clenched her fists tightly, and countless bolts of black divine lightning flickered around her. After that, her body started to slowly recover. She'd resisted it. Yi Xian frowned slightly and said, "Xiao Ta, show off." "Oh, no, reload. Feed me 20,000 star god veins, 20,000 star god veins." Yi Xian's gun returned to Xiao Ta, and it didn't take long for it to appear in Yi Xian's hand. He aimed it at the spirit demon divine master. The latter's pupils constricted, and she exploded with rage. "How shameless. You actually used an external object. You're truly shameless." Yi Xian thought for a moment, and then he said, "Then I won't use any external objects." As he spoke, he put away the small gun. The spirit devil priest was slightly stunned by this scene. Meanwhile, Yi Xian suddenly leaped up and slashed his sword at her. The spirit demon divine master narrowed his eyes and was about to attack when Yi Xian suddenly pulled out his gun and pulled the trigger. Boom! A white light surged out, and Yi Xian was the first to be sent flying. Down below, the spirit demon divine master's pupils constricted as he roared, "You're disregarding martial ethics." As soon as she finished speaking, she suddenly waved her hands, and countless bolts of divine lightning gathered above her head, protecting her entire body. Rumble. The barrier instantly shattered. In the next moment, the white light blasted the spirit demon divine master tens of thousands of meters away. As soon as she stopped, her body shattered. Not only that, but her soul also disappeared at a speed visible to the naked eye. This spear directly blasted her into nothingness. The spirit demon divine master looked blankly at Yi Xian in the distance. Didn't you say you don't need it?" Yi Xian nodded, "Yes." The spirit demon divine master roared, "Then why do you still need it?" Yi Xian glanced at the spirit demon divine master. "I use it when I want to, and I don't use it when I don't want to. I'm just playing." "What, are you going to bite me?" The spirit demon divine master's eyes almost popped out of their sockets, and she directly breathed her last. She directly died from anger. Yi Xian shook his head slightly. This person only has strength, but his state of mind isn't anything special. If it was me, no one could kill me with words. Xiao Ta said, of course, after all, young lord is shameless. Yi Xian, Xiao Ta suddenly said, young lord, why aren't you crazy anymore? Yi Xian said, I'm crazy when I want to, and I don't. I'm just playing. Xiao Ta, Yi Xian didn't waste words with Xiao Ta. He turned around and swept his gaze across the surroundings. The next moment, the azure profound sword in his hand flew out. Continue the massacre. He was serious about this matter. No one was allowed to hurt Shaoan. The spirit demon divine master could no longer stop Yi Xian. Yi Xian directly killed his way into the city. At this moment, there were almost no spirit demon race experts left. Because of the battle between him and the spirit demon divine master, some had died, and some had escaped. This demon city was now an empty city. Yi Xian scanned the surroundings. After confirming that there were no spirit demon race experts, he suddenly leaped and slashed down with his sword. Chi! A sword ray slashed into the demon city. In an instant, the entire city shattered and turned into dust. Yi Xian turned around and left. As if he'd thought of something, he opened his palm, and the azure profound sword flew out. In a short while, a line of words appeared in the distant space. Build it if you have the guts. I'll come again next time. As soon as he finished speaking, he turned around and flew on his sword, vanishing into the horizon in the blink of an eye. Yi Xian didn't leave the spirit demon world directly. Instead, he went to the Lin city from before. Many super experts of the spirit demon race were slumbering here. Yi Xian arrived on the city wall and glanced at the surroundings. A moment later, the azure profound sword suddenly flew out, and a bloody head fell slowly from the horizon. The spirit demon race experts in the dark were shocked when they saw this scene, and they retreated explosively. They didn't dare to watch in the dark anymore. Yi Xian arrived on the Lin city wall and glanced into the distance. There were hundreds of altars of various sizes in the city, and every single one of them contained a powerful aura. Some auras even made his heart palpitate. Very strong. That was what he felt. Yi Xian fell silent. Should he get rid of these slumbering powerhouses? His intuition told him that he couldn't. Moreover, once all these people woke up, he would be ganged up on. But leaving just like that would be letting the spirit demon race off too easily. At this thought, Yi Xian took out the small spear and fed it 20,000 star god veins. Then, he pointed the small spear at the Lin city. As if thinking of something, he fed it another 10,000 star god veins. Yi Xian's heart ached when he fed it. Because he only had less than 60,000 star god veins. These were all given to him by the azure lotus. Otherwise, he wouldn't even have a strand of them. If the pavilion master hadn't taken those spatial rings from the immortal treasure pavilion, at this thought, Yi Xian felt his heart ache. More than 1 billion. How many shots could he fire? If these 1 billion star god veins were in his hands, he would be able to soar. He would be able to shoot every day. Yi Xian sighed inwardly and stopped thinking about it. He pointed the small spear at the Lin city and pulled the trigger. Boom! A beam of white light gushed out from the muzzle. Yi Xian didn't look at it. As he was pushed back, he also hurriedly retreated. In the blink of an eye, he disappeared into the starry sky and used the azure profound sword to directly teleport outside. Spirit Demon Realm. The beam of white light directly entered the Lin city. In an instant, the entire Lin city boiled and began to burn. At this moment, a furious roar suddenly resounded from the Lin city. Who is it? The next moment, a terrifying force directly blasted the beam of white light. Rumble. The white light violently trembled and then exploded. At this moment, a burly spirit demon man appeared in the sky above the Lin city. His eyes were as deep as the starry sky, but at this moment, he didn't conceal his anger and killing intent. The burly man scanned the surroundings, but found nothing. The burly man suddenly turned his head and looked into the distance. Come out. As his voice fell, a spirit demon expert appeared in front of him. The spirit demon expert bowed deeply and then knelt down. Greetings. Left Hall Master. This person was the Left Hall Master of the Spirit Demon clan. He had an extremely high status. The Left Hall Master's expression was cold. What happened? The Spirit Demon race powerhouse bowed again and recounted the sequence of events that had transpired. When he finished listening to the Spirit Demon expert, the Left Hall Master's expression instantly became extremely unsightly. A city was slaughtered. The Spirit Demon clan was slaughtered. As if he thought of something, the Left Hall Master suddenly said angrily, "Where's the Spirit Demon Divine Master? What is she doing? She actually slaughtered a city. This is simply a great humiliation." The Spirit Demon expert hesitated for a moment and then said, "The Spirit Demon Divine Master has died in battle, died in battle." The Left Hall Master was stunned. Dead? The Spirit Demon expert nodded and said with a trembling voice, "Yes." The Left Hall Master fell silent and his expression gradually calmed down. He was well aware of the Spirit Demon Divine Master's strength. He was someone who had fought with them in the Great Wilderness and was at the peak of the quantitative transformation realm. But he had actually died in battle. After a moment of silence, the Left Hall Master said, "When did a super swordsman appear in the Great Wilderness?" The Spirit Demon expert hesitated for a moment and then said, "I heard from the Spirit Demon Divine Master that the young man doesn't seem to be from the Great Wilderness." The Left Hall Master frowned slightly. "Not from the Great Wilderness?" The Spirit Demon expert nodded. "Yes." The Left Hall Master's expression turned gloomy. "Since he isn't from the Great Wilderness, why did he come to our Spirit Demon clan to slaughter a city?" The Spirit Demon expert hesitated for a moment and then told the Left Hall Master the cause of the matter. The Left Hall Master's expression became even more gloomy. The Spirit Demon expert knelt on the ground and shivered, not daring to speak again. At this moment, the Left Hall Master slowly closed his eyes. No matter the reason, since this person slaughtered a city of our Spirit Demon clan, he can't live. With that, he suddenly vanished on the spot and arrived in the starry sky. He swept his gaze around, and in an instant, the entire Spirit Demon clan was enveloped by his divine sense. However, he didn't find any traces of Yi Xian. A short while later, the Left Hall Master arrived at the demon city from before. When he saw the once glorious demon city reduced to ruins, his expression instantly turned gloomy, and he didn't conceal his killing intent at all. When he saw the line of words left behind by Yi Xian, his expression gradually became slightly ferocious. An extraordinary humiliation. This was simply an extraordinary humiliation. The Spirit Demon clan hadn't suffered such humiliation even when they faced the Great Wilderness all those years ago. The Spirit Demon experts in the surroundings trembled and didn't dare say a word. Suddenly, the Left Hall Master said, "Rebuild the demon city." As he spoke, he looked towards the depths of the starry sky. If he doesn't continue his slaughter, then he's a coward. As soon as he finished speaking, he glanced at the surroundings and roared furiously, "Rebuild the city immediately. P.S. You have to work hard for the college entrance exam. Otherwise, you can only write like me in the future." To think that I almost got into Tsinghua University all those years ago. It was really just a little bit. Chapter 2194. Yi Xian returned to the Great Wilderness. Inside Xiaota, Yi Xian appeared in front of Enlancio. At this moment, Enlancio had returned to normal. After all, Yi Xian had many holy items for healing, especially those elixirs Yang Nianxue had left for him. They were truly invincible. Yi Xian said softly, "Are you all right?" Enlancio nodded, "I'm fine." Yi Xian said solemnly, "Little Un, where's Sister Nian?" "Sister Nian." Enlancio said, "She left." Yi Xian frowned slightly, "Left?" Enlancio nodded slightly, "She said she's going to a place and will come find me after some time." Yi Xian said solemnly, Then why did the spirit demon race find trouble with you? And Lanxiu shook her head, I don't know. Yi Xian's expression gradually turned cold. Clearly, the spirit demon race wanted to eat anyone they saw. And Lanxiu looked at Yi Xian, why are you here? Yi Xian said with a smile, I'm here to find you and Sister Nian. And Lanxiu asked, you've been to the middle world? Yi Xian nodded. And Lanxiu nodded slightly and said no more. Yi Xian was about to speak when he frowned. The next moment, he left Xiao Ta. Just as he left Xiao Ta, a middle-aged man stood in front of him. The middle-aged man smiled, are you young Master Yi? Yi Xian looked at the middle-aged man, you are? The middle-aged man said with a smile, Great Wilderness Hall's ancestor. Yi Xian frowned slightly, Great Wilderness Hall? The ancestor smiled, when the spirit demon race attacked, all the forces in the Great Wilderness joined forces and formed this Great Wilderness Hall to resist the spirit demon race. Yi Xian nodded, I understand. The previous master looked at Yi Xian, young Master Yi, I am here to invite you to join the Great Desolate Palace. Just as Yi Xian was about to shake his head, his teacher suddenly said, the spirit demon realm's left reverend has woken up. He has rebuilt the demon city and threatened to wait for young Master Yi to return and slaughter him. Reconstruction. Yi Xian frowned. Really? The first teacher nodded, that's right. Young Master Yi, I'm afraid that the left hall master won't let you off. You must be careful, he. At this time, Yi Xian suddenly turned around and left. The previous master was slightly taken aback, and then said, Young Master Yi, you are. Where are you going? Yi Xian didn't even turn his head. Massacre the city. As soon as he finished speaking, he transformed into a wisp of sword light and vanished on the spot. On the spot, the teacher was silent. His eyes flashed and no one knew what he was thinking. Yi Xian used the green profound sword to return to the demon city. When he returned, the demon city had already been rebuilt. As soon as Yi Xian appeared in front of the demon city, the left hall master appeared in front of him. It was obvious that the left hall master was prepared. The left hall master looked at Yi Xian in front of him. You have guts. Yi Xian glanced at the spirit demon race experts behind the left hall master and smiled. What? You want to gang up on me? The left hall master waved his hand, and the spirit demon race experts retreated. The left hall master looked at Yi Xian. I will fight you one-on-one. You can use any external objects you want. Yi Xian nodded. All right. The left hall master's expression froze. Damn it. This person isn't going to be polite at all. His words were meant to provoke Yi Xian. He originally thought that Yi Xian would say, I don't care about using external objects. However, he did not expect that this guy would nod directly. Yi Xian didn't waste any words and suddenly vanished on the spot. Hiss. A ray of blood-colored sword light tore through the battlefield. A wisp of a ferocious smile appeared on the left hall master's face. He took a step forward and punched out. Golden light surged out from this punch, and the world was obliterated. Bang! An expanse of sword light shattered, and Yi Xian was blasted hundreds of kilometers away. As soon as he stopped, the left hall master suddenly appeared above Yi Xian, and then he suddenly smashed his fist down. Annihilation Fist. Bang! With a single punch, the entire world turned into a giant whirlpool. The moment this fist descended, it would be the end of the world. Its strength was so terrifying. Yi Xian slowly closed his eyes. The azure sword in his right hand trembled slightly, and countless strands of time energy surged into his body. Bang! A terrifying aura swept out from Yi Xian's body. This time, Yi Xian didn't choose to increase his cultivation. He merely utilized the time energy. Yi Xian suddenly shot into the sky and slashed with his sword. Bang! His sword slashed against the vortex. In an instant, the entire vortex exploded apart, and countless rays of sword light shot through the sky. In an instant, the sky was instantly torn into countless tiny pieces. Meanwhile, Yi Xian and the left hall master retreated explosively. As they retreated, Yi Xian suddenly placed his sword between his brows and shouted furiously, "Sword!" As soon as he spoke, the world trembled violently. In the next moment, countless rays of sword light tore through space and arrived in the sky above the spirit demon world. There were millions of swords. The left hall master stared fixedly at Yi Xian. He slowly clenched his right hand, and a strand of terrifying energy silently condensed in his palm. Meanwhile, he suddenly pointed his sword at the left hall master, slash. As soon as he spoke, millions of swords slashed down from the starry sky. Hiss. In an instant, millions of holes were torn open in the sky above the spirit demon world, and the dense strand of sword energy surged down towards the left hall master like a storm. Millions of strands of sword energy surged down, and then the entire spirit demon world trembled. A wisp of ferocity flashed through the left hall master's eyes, and then he suddenly stomped his right foot against the ground. His figure shot into the sky, and then he smashed his fist forward, World Splitter. World Splitter. The entire spirit demon world split apart with this punch. The entire spirit demon world had split apart. At the instant that his fist was smashed forward, countless rays of sword energy were obliterated, and it was utterly destructive. All the rays of sword energy were obliterated while the left hall master's expression changed drastically. Because Yi Xian had suddenly charged into the city. In the next moment, a ray of sword energy exploded from within the city, and then the entire city was instantly blasted into pieces. The city had been destroyed. The left hall master's expression instantly became ferocious when he witnessed this scene, die. As soon as he finished speaking, he clenched his right hand forward, and then space suddenly exploded apart somewhere in the city, and then a figure retreated repeatedly. It was Yi Xian. Yi Xian hadn't lost anything because his green profound sword had transformed into a shield that stood in front of him. The left hall master stared fixedly at Yi Xian with a ferocious expression on his face, die. As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly charged forward. This charge directly blasted space into pieces, and then a terrifying force instantly arrived in front of Yi Xian. His formidable force was sufficient to shatter everything. Yi Xian issued a command in his heart, and then the green profound sword and shield suddenly transformed into a net, and then the left hall master's fist smashed against the net. Bang! The net sank down, but it didn't shatter. Moreover, when the net returned to normal, the left hall master's terrifying force was reflected back to his right hand. Bang! The left hall master instantly retreated explosively. After he stopped moving, the left hall master was stunned. Reflected it back? The net of swords in front of him had actually reflected his power. After all, the force of that punch of his could shatter the heavens and the earth. The corners of Yi Xian's mouth curled up slightly. Actually, he had just had a sudden thought. When two forces collided, an even greater force would be produced. In other words, the effects of force were mutual and could be multiplied. The first thing he thought of was defense. It wasn't a problem for the green profound sword to transform into a sword shield to block the force, but why didn't he transform the green profound sword into a net? Just like in the secular world, if one punched someone, the person would definitely feel pain, but so would one's own body. What if one punched cotton? Simply put, it was using softness to overcome hardness. However, if one transformed it into an elastic net, then as long as the net was hard enough, it would rebound when one punched it. Reality had proven that he was right. At that moment, as long as the green profound sword wasn't destroyed, he would always be in an invincible position. Unless his opponents attacked him in a group and he couldn't defend against them. In the distance, the left hall master glared at Yi Xian. What kind of divine object is that? It had to be said that he was extremely shocked at that moment. He knew very well how powerful his punch had been, but he had never expected that the sword in front of him would be able to block it and even rebound it. Ridiculous. It was too ridiculous. Yi Xian issued a command in his heart, and the green profound sword returned to his grasp. A moment later, he suddenly slashed towards the right. Hiss! A ray of light tore through the sky, and it instantly tore the entire city into pieces. Yi Xian gazed at the left hall master, who had an unsightly expression on his face. You build again, and I'll do it again. I'll slaughter every time I build it. As soon as he finished speaking, a ray of light suddenly flickered beneath his feet, and then he vanished on the spot. The left hall master had a gloomy expression on his face. Meanwhile, a voice suddenly resounded from behind him, build again. Tell him to do it again. The left hall master was shocked when he heard this, and then he hurriedly turned around and bowed respectfully. After Yi Xian returned to the Grand Wilderness, he immediately returned to Xiao Ta. At this moment, he was quite excited. Based on the thoughts he'd had just now, he had another thought. If energy was mutual, then what if he utilized it to slash the future, the past, and the present? Quantitative change. At this moment, that was a phrase that Yi Xian had thought of. The realm above eternal was the boundless realm, and the realm above the boundless realm was quantitative change. What was quantitative change? It was a form of essence. The splitting and release of energy was like a piece of wood. If it was burned, then it would split. With such a foundation, he could allow his sword energy to attain an extremely terrifying level. Its might would multiply. Yi Xian acted as soon as he thought of this. He opened his palm, and the green profound sword appeared in his grasp. A moment later, it started to tremble, and then he released a strand of sword energy before starting to compress it like a madman. Unlike before, he wasn't just compressing it. At the same time, he was ceaselessly providing new strand of sword energy to replenish the core of the sword energy so that it wouldn't be crushed by him. Simply speaking, the sword energy was being compressed madly, and then it was growing stronger incessantly. He was looking for a point of splitting. Under his pressure, the strand of sword energy started to tremble violently. After an extremely long time, a strand of dazzling sword light suddenly erupted from the strand of sword energy, and along with the appearance of this sword light, Yi Xian was directly blasted 3 kilometers away. Moreover, when he stopped, his chest had split apart. On the other hand, the place where the strand of sword energy stood had become pitch black. Yi Xian was first stunned when he witnessed this scene, and then he turned around and hugged Enlanxiu, who'd rushed over. He hugged Enlanxiu and gave her a fierce kiss, and then he roared with laughter. Little Un, I'm truly a genius. I'm truly an extraordinary genius. If the Tao of the sword doesn't have me, Yi Xian, then it would be a dark night. Ha! Enlanxiu gazed at Yi Xian. Why did you kiss me? Yi Xian was stunned, and then he said, Did I kiss you? I didn't. Enlanxiu was speechless. Chapter 2195. Enlanxiu looked at the excited Yi Xian and didn't say anything. Yi Xian hurriedly said, Shaoan, I just discovered a brand new cultivation method. It's called quantitative change. As he spoke, he told Shaoan about his previous discovery. Enlanxiu frowned slightly. Is it really possible? Yi Xian hurriedly nodded. It's really possible. You can give it a try. Enlanxiu hesitated for a moment before she nodded and started to give it a try. A short while later, a trace of excitement flashed in her eyes. It's really possible. Yi Xian smiled. I want to use it in my sword technique. Enlanxiu nodded. Sure. Yi Xian said, I'm going into closed-door cultivation for a period of time. As soon as he finished speaking, he turned around and left. Enlanxiu frowned slightly on the spot. Did I forget something? Yi Xian found a quiet mountain peak and sat cross-legged on the ground while the green profound sword floated before him. Meanwhile, Xiao Ta was about to speak when Yi Xian suddenly said, Shut up, it has nothing to do with you. Xiao Ta, in the following time, Yi Xian started to study this quantitative change. Quantitative change. He didn't cultivate level by level because he didn't cultivate realms and didn't need to follow a routine. As long as he had money and resources, he could cultivate any realm he wanted. Moreover, he felt that this quantitative change might be slightly different from other quantitative changes. As for what the difference was, he didn't know because he wasn't too familiar with the other quantitative change. Cultivation knew no time. In the blink of an eye, 10 years passed. Of course, only a day had passed in the outside world. Yi Xian first started to try sword draw to determine life and death. Because sword draw to determine life and death was superimposed, this sword technique was most suitable for fission. Countless strands of sword qi superimposed and then caused the core sword qi to fission. Yi Xian tried over and over again to find the most perfect fission point. Just like that, after a few years, Yi Xian finally found the perfect fission point after repeated attempts and grasped it. Somewhere in the starry sky, Yi Xian stood with a sword in his hand. It was an ordinary sword. Yi Xian closed his eyes. Calm down. Focus. After a while, Yi Xian suddenly pulled out his sword and slashed. As the sword fell, countless afterimages overlapped. In that instant, he had stacked 30,000 swords. The instant the 30,000 swords overlapped, the sword qi split. Boom! In the blink of an eye, the star domain within a radius of several million kilometers was annihilated. Annihilating a star field with a single sword strike. Moreover, the sword in his hand was not the Qingxian sword. If it was the Qingxian sword, its power would be doubled. However, after this slash, Yi Xian's entire body seemed to have been sucked dry. His whole body was so weak as if he had done that kind of thing. Soft. His legs went soft. Everything was soft. That was what Yi Xian was feeling at this moment. Meanwhile, Enlanxiu appeared in front of Yi Xian. She walked over to Yi Xian and supported Yi Xian up. Yi Xian's body suddenly went limp, and he who was originally able to stand directly fell into Enlanxiu's arms. He fell into her arms. Enlanxiu's figure stiffened. Yi Xian's countenance was pale, and he said weakly, "I wasn't able to control it. I don't have any strength left." Enlanxiu hesitated for a moment and said, "Can you stand?" Yi Xian shook his head slightly. "Let me lie down for a while." "Just a while will be enough." Enlanxiu hesitated for a short while, but she didn't refuse in the end. Yi Xian lay in Enlanxiu's arms while Enlanxiu sat on an empty seat, and the surroundings of the obliterated starry sky were completely silent. Yi Xian suddenly asked, "Little one, did you succeed?" Enlanxiu nodded. "I did." Yi Xian was slightly stunned, and then he said, "So quickly?" Enlanxiu nodded. "I did it a year ago." Yi Xian's face froze when he heard this. She did it a year ago. Yi Xian shook his head and smiled bitterly. Little An's natural talent is truly monstrous. Little An suddenly said, "How did you think of using such a method?" Yi Xian smiled and said, "Battle. Battle." Actually, the reason he had such thoughts was because of the battle with the spirit fiend god and the other experts from the spirit demon race. He truly felt that battle was the best method to improve himself. Ceaselessly force himself and ceaselessly improve himself. Enlanxiu spoke softly, "You're walking very quickly." Yi Xian fell silent. Actually, even he felt that he was walking quite quickly. Should I slow down a little? He'd had such a thought in the past, but what was the outcome? After he attained a certain level of attainment, he wanted to go even higher. There was no end to learning. If he only wanted to act cool, then he just had to return to Qingcheng and he would have endless opportunities to act cool. But what was the point of that? Life was only interesting when it was a little difficult. Meanwhile, Enlanxiu suddenly said, "Your goal is to surpass the 3 sword strikes?" Yi Xian nodded, "Yes." Enlanxiu nodded slightly, "I'll go with you." Yi Xian looked at Enlanxiu, and he suddenly felt slightly dazed as he gazed at the peerlessly beautiful face before him. Shit. It's the feeling of being moved. Actually, he'd been moved a long time ago. Enlanxiu lowered her head to look at Yi Xian. "Why are you looking at me?" Yi Xian smiled lightly, "Little one, do you still remember the first time we met?" Enlanxiu nodded. Yi Xian suddenly stretched out his hand to grab Enlanxiu's hand. And Lanxiu's hand trembled slightly, and she instinctively wanted to struggle free. However, Yi Xian held her hand tightly. Helpless, and Lanxiu could only give up. Yi Xian spoke softly, "Now that I think about it, it seems like it was yesterday. At that time, you were the youngest kingdom scholar of our state of Jianghu, and also the most monstrous genius of our state of Jianghu. You were so dazzling that others didn't dare look at you directly." And Lanxiu lowered her head slightly and didn't speak. Yi Xian smiled, "Do you still remember Yi Lang?" And Lanxiu nodded, "The reincarnated person." Yi Xian laughed, "Actually, I'm quite grateful to him because if it wasn't for him, you might not have come to Azure City, and if you didn't come to Azure City, I might not have met you. If I didn't meet you, then even if I surpassed the 3 sword strikes, what meaning would there be in my life?" When he spoke up to here, he looked at Little N's eyes. "To me, a myriad of sword daos are inferior to a single smile from Little N." Xiao Ta was speechless. And Lanxiu lowered her head to look at Yi Xian and didn't speak. Yi Xian looked straight at Lanxiu. "Little N, I like you. Do you like me?" Simple and direct. Hearing Yi Xian's words, and Lanxiu's body trembled slightly. She didn't expect Yi Xian to be so direct. For a moment, her heart was in a mess and she didn't know how to answer. Yi Xian suddenly smiled and said, "If you're not speaking, then it means you like me." And Lanxiu was just about to speak when Yi Xian suddenly stood up and kissed her on the lips. "If you like a woman, then don't be coy. Go. Go directly. Hesitation will lead to defeat. Love doesn't come flying, it comes chasing. If you don't chase, how can you bring the beauty home?" To chase a woman, there were only 4 mantras: be bold, careful, thick-skinned, and rich. Yi Xian didn't chase many women, but he was very clear that if he met someone he liked, he must not let her go. Because many times, missing a moment meant missing a lifetime. When he turned back, the person he loved would already be someone else's wife. If he didn't confess, she would be someone else's. Life is short, why leave regrets? As for being thick-skinned, if he didn't even dare to confess, then what was the use of having face? As long as he was thick-skinned and courageous, he dared to ask a female ghost to go on maternity leave. And Lanxiu was directly stunned by Yi Xian's kiss. When did Yi Xian become so abrupt? But why wasn't she angry? Why wasn't she angry? And Lanxiu felt her heart beat faster and faster. She really wanted to push Yi Xian away, but at this moment, she discovered that the strength within her body seemed to have disappeared, and she couldn't muster up the slightest bit of strength. After a very, very long time, Yi Xian released Lanxiu. He looked at Lanxiu, who was close at hand, and faintly smiled. "When I was in Qingcheng, I already had this thought." And Lanxiu looked at Yi Xian. "What do you like about me?" Yi Xian said, "I like everything about you." And Lanxiu looked straight at Yi Xian. "Specifics?" Yi Xian shook his head. "I can't tell you the specifics." And Lanxiu lowered her head slightly, and no one knew what she was thinking. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly said, "I only know that when I first met you, I was stunned by your beauty. Everyone loves beauty, and I'm no exception. If you want to blame something, you can only blame yourself for being too beautiful." Xiao Ta and Lanxiu looked at Yi Xian and didn't speak. Yi Xian continued, "Later on, when I interacted with you, you were a proud and lofty woman of heaven, and at that time, I was just a nameless abandoned child of the Yi family. But you didn't look down on me in the slightest. On the contrary, when the Yi family was trying to harm me, you even lent a hand and gave me a token to go to Karaki Academy." When he spoke up to here, he shook his head slightly. "I don't know if these are the reasons why I like you. I only know that I like you, and when I see you, I feel happy, and my heart beats faster. Love? I don't know. I only know that I want to be with you forever. It's that simple." And Lanxiu fell silent for a long time before she suddenly grabbed Yi Xian's hand lightly, and then she said in a light voice, "I don't regret meeting you, and I'm glad that we met." Yi Xian roared with laughter, and then he picked Lanxiu up. And Lanxiu looked at Yi Xian, who was just inches away from her, and her gaze was slightly dazed. The scene from when they first met appeared in her mind once more. Love? She didn't understand. Because she had never loved before, and this was the first time. She only knew that she liked being with Yi Xian, and there was no other reason. It was that simple. When she was with her master, Marshal Godin, her master had once told her that if she loved someone, then love them. Don't miss out on life. She was actually happy that Yi Xian had opened his heart to her just now because she wasn't good at expressing herself. If she had to express herself, then she might have waited for 10,000 years before saying it. Fortunately, Yi Xian had expressed himself. She liked the seemingly honest Yi Xian of the past, but she also liked the bold and thick-skinned Yi Xian of the present. What was love? Love his good points, love his bad points, and be able to share his wealth and suffering with him. The path of Tao Yi was endless, and it was filled with endless loneliness. If she gave up everything, then even if she reached the peak of the martial Tao, what was the point? When she thought up to there, Enloncio hugged Yi Xian lightly. In the distant Milky Way galaxy, a woman was walking slowly by the sea, and her long hair fluttered lightly as the sea breeze blew. It was a woman in a plain dress. At this moment, the woman in a plain dress suddenly stopped, and she looked at the distant sea and said softly, "Big brother." As soon as she finished speaking, she flicked her sleeve. A myriad of sword chi instantly covered the entire surface of the sea, and the sword chi formed Yi Xian's image. As she looked at Yi Xian's image, a wisp of a smile appeared on the corners of the woman's mouth. The path of Tao Yi was endless. But she had already reached the peak. In terms of strength, there was no one in the world who could kill her, and there was no one she could not kill. Eternal life? She had already understood life and death countless years ago. As long as she was willing, her clone could live forever. As for her main body, it had long surpassed life and death. The end of the universe? Even she did not know where the end of the universe was. However, as long as she was willing, she could completely collapse this infinite universe, making it completely endless. In terms of strength, she was already invincible. In terms of lifespan, she was already eternal. However, without Yi Xian, all of this was meaningless. The woman in a plain dress suddenly turned her head, and she looked coldly in a certain direction. As long as my brother is alive, the universe is alive. After a moment of silence, she suddenly said, "Damn it, threatening me every day, I really can't take it anymore." P.S. 2 things. First, I'm going back to my hometown. I'm going back to see my family because I've been away for a long time. I have to go back and see my mother. My brother is studying, and my mother is alone in my hometown. It might affect my writing, everyone please understand. The second thing, because of the updated storyline tomorrow, an unexpected character will appear. Therefore, I will post a special article on my WeChat account at 9 o'clock. Everyone can add my WeChat account first. After tomorrow's update, everyone can watch it. Tomorrow's update will be at 3 p.m. I'll keep this character in suspense. Anyway, everyone will definitely not expect it. It's expected, and unexpected, ha. Chapter 2196. Yi Xian and Enloncio sat in each other's arms amidst the starry sky. After they'd bared their hearts, they'd naturally become even closer to each other. Yi Xian gazed at the shattered space in the surroundings, and then he seemed to have thought of something and suddenly frowned. The law of conservation. Enloncio turned around to gaze at Yi Xian. The law of conservation? Yi Xian nodded. He gazed at the expanse of space in the surroundings that he'd slashed apart with his sword, and then he spoke in a low voice. The pavilion master of Immortal Treasure Pavilion said that it's the law of conservation. Even if a universe is destroyed, its quantity still exists. I didn't really understand it earlier, but now that I look carefully, I noticed that while I've slashed this expanse of space into pieces, the quality of the things within it still exists. As he spoke, he waved his right hand lightly. In an instant, a wave of ripples instantly arose in the pitch-black starry sky here. He'd destroyed a region of space. It wasn't the essence of this expanse of space. What was quantity? It was equivalent to the essence of space. Yi Xian suddenly said, "It's like a piece of wood." Would it really cease to exist if it was incinerated? No, it would turn into ash. Actually, it would still exist, and it would just exist in a different form. Quantity, essence. His brows knit together slightly as he spoke. Meanwhile, Enlancio suddenly said, "I understand now." Yi Xian turned around to gaze at Enlancio with astonishment. "You understand?" Enlancio nodded. "We've been constantly talking about essence in the past. But our strengths and knowledge were lacking at that time, so we weren't able to understand the true meaning of essence." When she spoke up to hear, she paused for a moment and continued, "Essence actually surpasses the universe itself." She stood up slowly as she spoke, and then she suddenly stabbed the spear in her right hand forward. Bang! A pitch-black vortex suddenly appeared at the tip of the spear. Enlancio gazed at the pitch-black vortex and spoke softly, "The essence of this expanse of space still exists. Perhaps it'll be able to recover to its original state after many years." Yi Xian nodded. The pavilion master said that if one cultivates according to the law of conservation, one's life can last forever, and one's martial Tao can never be destroyed. As he spoke, he took out the unfinished book of the owner of Celestial Treasure Pavilion. She used the language of this world to write it. Obviously, she wanted to show it to the people of this world. Unfortunately, she didn't finish it. When he spoke up to this point, he suddenly shook his head and smiled, "Actually, it's not bad." Enlancio nodded. "I've comprehended something." Yi Xian blinked. "Have you realized something?" Enlancio nodded. Yi Xian smiled and said, "Then you can cultivate in the tower." Enlancio nodded and directly entered the small pagoda. On the spot, Yi Xian glanced at his surroundings. Just as he was about to properly study the law of conservation, the ancestor of the great desolate palace appeared before Yi Xian. The previous master hurriedly said, "Young Master Yi, according to what I know, the spirit demon realm's demon city has been rebuilt again." Hearing this, Yi Xian fell silent. It was rebuilt. The first master took out a teleportation talisman and placed it in front of Yi Xian. "Young Master Yi, this talisman can directly teleport to the demon city." He naturally hoped that Yi Xian would go to the spirit demon race again because that way, Yi Xian could exhaust the spirit demon race's strength. Yi Xian glanced at his previous master. He wanted to kill him. It was rebuilt. It was obvious that another expert from the spirit demon race had awakened. Moreover, there might be more than one of them. The reason why the other party wanted him to go was so that they could gang up on him. Under normal circumstances, he would just pretend that he didn't know. The problem was, this idiot actually came to remind him. Go. Once he went, he would definitely be ganged up on. He might not even be able to return. Not going? Damn it. Back then, he had acted so arrogantly. If he didn't go, he would really lose face. He could lose face, but he couldn't take back his pretense, right? What should he do? At this moment, the previous master suddenly said, "Young Master Yi, when will you set off for the demon city?" Yi Xian, the previous master, still wanted to say something, but Yi Xian suddenly said, "Previous master, did the great wilderness win or lose the battle with the spirit demon race?" The previous master smiled bitterly. Both sides suffered. Yi Xian blinked. It can't be. Look, there are spirit demon race experts everywhere, but I didn't find any great wilderness palace experts in the spirit demon race. You guys lost, right? Moreover, you should have lost quite badly, right? The previous master's expression froze. Yi Xian sneered. How could he not understand this previous master? The other party wanted to use him as a spear and make him fight the spirit demon race. I can kill the spirit demon race, but you can't use me as a spear. Yi Xian continued, "Previous master, what position do you have in the great wilderness palace?" The previous master hesitated for a moment before saying, "Similar to a military advisor." Yi Xian shook his head. Even if you're a military advisor, why are you so narrow-minded? Isn't it better to rope me in? Why must you use me? Do you think I'm stupid, or are you stupid? The previous master's expression was somewhat ugly. Yi Xian looked at the previous master. Are you unconvinced? As he spoke, his thumb gently pressed against the hilt of the green profound sword. If you're not convinced or unhappy, just say it. The previous master looked at Yi Xian with a hint of fear in the depths of his eyes. Say it? Naturally, he didn't dare to say it. He knew that if he dared to say it, the person in front of him would dare to kill him. Yi Xian narrowed his eyes. Are you going to say it or not? Hearing that, the previous master was shocked and hurriedly said, Young Master Yi, it's my fault. I have some small thoughts. I hope that young Master Yi will be magnanimous and not take it to heart. Yi Xian was expressionless. I'll take it to heart. The previous master's expression froze. At this moment, Xiao Ta's voice suddenly sounded in the previous master's mind. My young master likes the star god Vane. If you think about it, he won't take it to heart. Star god Vane. The previous master hesitated for a moment before taking out a storage ring and handing it to Yi Xian. Young Master Yi, this is a small token of my appreciation. Please accept it. Yi Xian glanced at it and immediately flew into a rage. Who do you think I am? Am I that kind of person? The previous master was stunned, his face filled with disbelief. Young Master Yi isn't greedy? At this moment, Xiao Ta's voice sounded in the previous master's mind again. You've given too little. The previous master, at this time, the cyan profound sword in Yi Xian's sheath suddenly trembled, and a sword cry resounded. The previous master was shocked, and immediately took out another storage ring and handed it to Yi Xian. Young Master Yi, all of my star god veins are here. Yi Xian took a look. There were less than 30,000 star god veins in the storage ring. He frowned. Why are you so poor? The Immortal Treasure Pavilion can easily have more than 1 billion star god veins. The previous master laughed bitterly. Young Master Yi, the Immortal Treasure Pavilion is a business. How can ordinary people compare to a business? Yi Xian thought for a moment, then nodded. That's true. After saying that, he kept the storage ring and turned to leave. The previous master's heart relaxed, and he broke out in a cold sweat. In that instant, his intuition told him that if Yi Xian attacked, he would definitely die. He couldn't block it. As if he had thought of something, the previous master sighed in his heart. It had to be said that his vision was indeed small. Actually, the reason why he did that in the beginning was because he thought that Yi Xian was a brainless second generation. Thus, he wanted to use Yi Xian to let Yi Xian fight the spirit demon race, and then draw out the power behind Yi Xian. In this way, the great wilderness would have an extra super helper. But he didn't expect that Yi Xian would see through his intentions. All of this was good, trying to steal a chicken only to end up losing the rice used to lure it. The previous master shook his head, turned around, and left. Yi Xian went directly to the Immortal Treasure Pavilion. Seeing Yi Xian, Li Sheng's face instantly turned bitter. Here it comes again. Of course, he was even more shocked. Because he already knew about the spirit demon realm. The person in front of him had actually massacred several cities in the spirit demon realm, and even killed the spirit demon divine master of the spirit demon race. How terrifying! Yi Xian glanced at Li Sheng, then said, President Li, lend me some money, I want to shoot. Li Sheng was stunned. Borrow money? Shoot. Yi Xian nodded. He had quite a few divine star veins, but not many. He only had 70,000 to 80,000 divine star veins now, and he could shoot twice at most. If he faced an extremely strong opponent, then he could only shoot once. Poor. This was the first time he felt so poor. Li Sheng hesitated for a moment, and then he said, Young Master Yi, how much do you want to borrow? Yi Xian asked, How much do you have? Li Sheng's eyelids twitched. This, Yi Xian sighed softly, stood up, and left. Li Sheng was stunned, and then he hurriedly said, "Young Master Yi, you." Yi Xian didn't say anything, and he just flew on his sword and vanished into the horizon. Li Sheng remained silent on the spot. In the distant horizon, Xiao Ta suddenly said, "Young master, why aren't you lending anymore?" Yi Xian smiled, "It's not good to force others against their will." Xiao Ta said, "Then what did you do to my late master?" Yi Xian smiled, "It was my late master who schemed against me first. He wanted to treat me like an idiot." Xiao Ta said, "I understand." Yi Xian glanced at the surroundings, and he was just about to enter Xiao Ta to cultivate when the space before him suddenly trembled slightly. In the next moment, space split open, and a middle-aged man walked out from within. Yi Xian frowned slightly when he saw this middle-aged man. It was the left hall master from before. However, it wasn't his main body, but a clone. Yi Xian frowned when he saw the left hall master. How did this fellow find me? The left hall master stared at Yi Xian. "My city has been built." Yi Xian asked, "And then?" The left hall master stared fixedly at Yi Xian. "Didn't you say that you would slaughter every time my city is built? Come, now that my city has been built, I beg you to slaughter it." Yi Xian fell silent. The left hall master mocked, "What? You're not going to slaughter them?" Yi Xian looked at the left hall master and smiled, "I'll slaughter them if I want to, and I won't slaughter them if I don't want to. Bite me." The left hall master stared fixedly at Yi Xian. "If you don't dare, then just say it." Yi Xian hesitated for a moment, and he seemed to be slightly afraid. A wisp of mockery appeared on the left hall master's lips when he saw this. Afraid? Yi Xian looked at the left hall master, and he seemed to have been provoked. He immediately said angrily, "Once I go, all of you will definitely gang up on me. If you have the ability, then fight me with your main body. Let's have a fair fight." The left hall master stared at Yi Xian, "The kind that won't run?" Yi Xian said angrily, "Whoever runs is a coward." The left hall master said, "All right." As soon as he finished speaking, the space he was in trembled slightly. In the next moment, his projection gradually solidified. His main body had descended. The left hall master looked at Yi Xian, and just as he was about to speak, Yi Xian suddenly disappeared on the spot. Quantitative change. Before the left hall master could react, his head was sent flying. Instant kill. The left hall master's eyes were wide open, and they were filled with disbelief. He was instantly killed? How was this possible? In the air, Yi Xian sheathed his sword and glanced at the left hall master's head. "Who gave you the guts to speak to me like this? Don't you know that I'm invincible?" The left hall master was speechless. Chapter 2197. It had to be said that the left hall master died with everlasting regret. When he fought with Yi Xian previously, Yi Xian was suppressed by him. But now, he was instantly killed with a single strike. Instant kill with a single strike. This was too ridiculous. The left hall master's face was full of disbelief. His eyes were wide open, and he died with everlasting regret. Yi Xian sheathed his sword and opened his palm. A storage ring on the left hall master's hand flew to him. He glanced at it. There were 100,000 star god veins in the storage ring. 100,000. He could fire another 2 shots. Yi Xian put away the storage ring and turned to leave. At this moment, the space behind him suddenly trembled slightly. Yi Xian frowned and pressed his left thumb against the hilt of the green profound sword. At this moment, a blurry figure appeared behind Yi Xian. Yi Xian narrowed his eyes. Danger. The next moment, Yi Xian suddenly turned around and slashed down with his sword. Boom! The moment the sword slashed down, heaven and earth tore apart. However, the next moment, Yi Xian was pushed back thousands of feet by a terrifying aura. After stopping, Yi Xian glanced at his right hand. The sword was fine, but his advantage had been completely cracked. His bones were visible. Yi Xian looked up into the distance. The blurry figure gradually solidified. It was a middle-aged man in a black robe with shoulder-length hair. Yi Xian gripped the scabbard tightly with his left hand. This middle-aged man was much stronger than the left hall master. At this moment, a voice suddenly resounded from the distant horizon. Mu Su, what wind blew you, the patriarch of the spirit demon clan, here today? The patriarch of the spirit demon clan. Yi Xian turned to look. A white-robed man stood in the distance. Grand Desolation Temple's master, Tai Huang. Mu Su glanced coldly at Tai Huang before his gaze landed on Yi Xian. My demon city has been built. You're welcome to slaughter. With that, he turned and disappeared on the spot. Yi Xian was silent. Xiao Ta, is he provoking me? Xiao Ta said, yes. Young lord, do you want to kill him? Yi Xian nodded. You go first. Xiao Ta thought for a moment, and then he said, let's make peace. Yi Xian was speechless. Meanwhile, Tai Huang looked at Yi Xian. May I know where little friend Yi is from? Yi Xian said, Qingcheng. Tai Huang frowned slightly, Qingcheng? Yi Xian smiled and said, it's just a small place. Tai Huang glanced at Yi Xian, and then he smiled and said, young friend, we have a common enemy, right? Yi Xian nodded. Yes. Tai Huang looked at Yi Xian, join forces? Yi Xian remained silent. There were many schemes outside, so it was best to be careful. Tai Huang smiled and said, young Master Yi, you might not know much about the spirit demon race. They aren't as simple as they seem on the surface. Yi Xian frowned slightly, what do you mean? Tai Huang said solemnly, there's someone behind the spirit demon race. Yi Xian was slightly stunned, and then he said, there's someone behind them? Tai Huang nodded, if there's no one, would they have dared to attack my great wilderness with all their strength? Yi Xian hesitated for a moment, and then he said, who's behind them? Tai Huang said solemnly, the Lord of Five Elements, the one who controls the Tao of the Five Elements in the world. The Tao of the Five Elements. Yi Xian said solemnly, like the Lord of Time? Tai Huang nodded. Yi Xian was slightly puzzled. Why did he order the spirit demon race to attack the great wilderness? Tai Huang chuckled lightly, there's a divine object in the great wilderness ancient world that even the supreme existences covet. Yi Xian was curious, what's that? Tai Huang said solemnly, the primeval sacred temple, left behind by the primeval great emperor all those years ago. It's an existence that surpasses the supreme existences. Rumor has it that there's a legendary vein of heaven within it. Yi Xian asked, surpassing the supreme existences means they're even stronger than the Lord of Time and the others? Tai Huang nodded. Yi Xian asked again, what's a vein of heaven? A spirit vein? Tai Huang smiled and said, no, it's a type of inheritance, a mysterious inheritance. Do you know why the Lord of Time and the Lord of Five Elements were able to become supreme existences and rule the universe alone? Yi Xian said solemnly, isn't the Lord of Time able to become the Lord of Time because he's a spirit condensed from time? Tai Huang smiled faintly, little friend, you only know part of it. He's indeed a spirit condensed from time, but you should know that every universe's time has its own spirit. Thousands of universes have thousands of time spirits. He was now the master of time because he had become the strongest. Then, he could control the time spirits of tens of thousands of universes. He was like an emperor in the mortal world. There were countless people, but only the strongest one could become a king. And the reason why the Lord of Time was able to become the king of the Tao of Time was because he once obtained a vein of heaven inheritance. Yi Xian was slightly curious, what's a vein of heaven inheritance? Tai Huang shook his head, I don't know. Only supreme existences like them know. Yi Xian blinked, didn't you say that the ancient temple of antiquity is in the great wilderness? Tai Huang smiled bitterly, it is in the great wilderness and I even know the exact location. But knowing doesn't mean I can enter. Not only do I not dare to enter, I don't even dare to approach that place. Yi Xian asked, dangerous? Tai Huang nodded, it's not an ordinary kind of danger. Yi Xian continued to ask, was the ancient emperor rich? Tai Huang hesitated for a moment before saying, an expert of this level is naturally rich. Otherwise, how could he cultivate to such a level? Yi Xian thought about it and nodded, I understand. Speaking of which, Lord of Five Elements, why didn't the ancient temple of antiquity come and take it himself? If his true body came, your great wilderness wouldn't dare to resist, right? Tai Huang smiled bitterly, if his true body came to take it, would I dare to resist? Not only would I not dare to resist, I would have to line the streets to welcome him. The problem is, he didn't come with his true body. He let the spirit demon race come and promised the spirit demon race that after the matter is done, the great wilderness will belong to the spirit demon race. Yi Xian was a little puzzled, why did he do that? Tai Huang sighed softly, many people like to be a whore and establish a chastity memorial arch at the same time. Yi Xian, Tai Huang continued, ancient emperor left a message that the ancient temple of antiquity belongs to the fated. From what I know, the Lord of Five Elements and the ancient temple of antiquity know each other. They should be the same group of experts. However, this ancient emperor is much stronger. The reason why he didn't come to take it himself is probably because he's afraid of being laughed at. Under normal circumstances, most people care about their reputation, and those shameless people are rare. Yi Xian's face instantly darkened. Damn it. Does this thing know how to talk? Tai Huang continued, moreover, if he came to take it himself, the other supremes probably wouldn't let him take it so easily. Therefore, he chose to let the spirit demon race do this. At this point, he suddenly shook his head, actually, I'm also very annoyed. If he came to me back then, I would also cooperate with him. He can do whatever he wants and I will definitely cooperate unconditionally. After all, how can I not cooperate with such a supremes? I can't wait to suck up to him. I don't know if there's water in his brain. He didn't look for the people close at hand, but instead went to the spirit demon race. Damn it, this kind of person can also become a supremes. Brother Yi, to be honest, I feel very unbalanced. Yi Xian, the more Tai Huang spoke, the angrier he became. Brother Yi, do you know? I've seen too many people since I started cultivating. I've found a problem, and that is, some people only cultivate their realm and don't cultivate their brains. Moreover, some people, the stronger they are, the worse their brains are. Yi Xian nodded in agreement. Yes. Tai Huang sized up Yi Xian and said, Brother Yi, you have such terrifying strength at such a young age. I think your identity isn't ordinary. Yi Xian smiled. Temple Master Tai Huang, I have another question. Back then, when the Lord of Five Elements interfered, how did the great wilderness survive? Tai Huang said solemnly, it's because the pavilion master of the Celestial Treasure Pavilion intervened. Yi Xian frowned. Pavilion master of the Celestial Treasure Pavilion? Tai Huang nodded. She went to talk to the Lord of Five Elements. I don't know what she talked about, but in any case, the Lord of Five Elements didn't attack us. Yi Xian fell silent. Pavilion master of the Celestial Treasure Pavilion. This woman's strength was above the Lord of Five Elements. At this moment, Tai Huang suddenly said, Brother Yi, come to the Great Wilderness Hall. Let's destroy the spirit demon race together. If you come, you'll be the deputy hall master. Of course, if you're not satisfied, you can even be the hall master. I'll support you. The corners of Yi Xian's mouth curled up. This Tai Huang has some skill. In just a few words, he's closed the distance between us. Moreover, his words are very pleasant. He has some skill. Yi Xian smiled. Hall master, how should I address you? Tai Huang smiled. Just call me Tai Huang. Yi Xian nodded slightly and said, can you take me to the primordial sacred hall to have a look? Tai Huang frowned. You want to go to the primordial sacred hall? Yi Xian nodded. I want to go take a look. Tai Huang hesitated for a moment and said, "It really is dangerous." Yi Xian smiled. "Don't worry. I'll flee if there's any danger." Tai Huang fell silent for a moment before he said, "Fine. Brother Yi is obviously extraordinary. It shouldn't be a problem to go take a look. However, I still have to remind Brother Yi that this place is extremely dangerous. You must be careful." Yi Xian nodded. "All right." Tai Huang didn't say anything else, and he brought Yi Xian along as he vanished into the horizon. Yi Xian hadn't expected that the two of them would actually travel through a stellar region. It took them an entire 4 hours. In an unknown stellar region, Tai Huang pointed towards the depths of the starry sky. "The primordial sacred hall is at the end of the horizon. I can't go any further." Yi Xian said solemnly, "There are restrictions?" Tai Huang nodded. Yi Xian smiled. "Understood." As soon as he finished speaking, he transformed into a ray of light and vanished into the distance. Tai Huang frowned as he gazed at Yi Xian. Brother Yi wouldn't be a second generation, right? At the end of the starry sky, Yi Xian's brows suddenly knit together because he sensed an indescribable danger. Meanwhile, Xiao Ta said abruptly, "Young master, let's go. It's dangerous." Yi Xian didn't hesitate at all when he heard this. He immediately turned around and fled. He wouldn't go head-on against them. However, it was still a little too late. Yi Xian suddenly felt his vision blur. In the next moment, a hand pierced through his abdomen. Yi Xian's pupils constricted. He decisively abandoned his physical body, and his figure trembled as he retreated. In the next moment, he slashed down with his sword. Boom! The ray of light was annihilated as soon as it appeared. In the next moment, a hand arrived above his head, and then it slammed down. The hand was about to forcefully crush Yi Xian's soul. At this moment, a voice suddenly sounded from the side. "He. Primordial, this is the chosen one. If you kill him, you'll be in big trouble." Chapter 2198. The hand stopped 1.5 m above Yi Xian's head. After a moment of silence, the hand vanished, and the surroundings returned to normal. It was as if it had never appeared. After a short while, Yi Xian noticed that he was on a small island, and there was a black hall at the center of the island. It was majestic and extremely grand. The island was surrounded by water, and at the end of the water was an endless mountain range. Yi Xian turned around and saw a woman standing under a cherry blossom tree in the distance. The woman wore a simple linen short-sleeved shirt. The sleeves were a little short, revealing 2 slender, jade-like hands. On both sides of her shirt, there were 2 small pockets. In the pockets, there were 2 pens that didn't belong to this world. The woman wore loose linen trousers. There were no patterns on the trousers, and they were very simple and clean. On her feet was a pair of linen slippers. They were very simple, and they were very ordinary cloth shoes. The woman's hair was very long, and it reached her waist. However, the front of her forehead was very short, and she had bangs that reached her eyebrows. Beneath the bangs was a pair of light eyebrows that were very simple and natural without any traces of makeup. Beneath the beautiful eyebrows was a pair of extremely clear eyes, and they were like the purest water in autumn. Moreover, there was a small cloth bag hanging from her waist. The woman held a thick ancient book in her hands and placed it before her chest. She was staring at Yi Xian with a faint smile on her face. It was like a spring breeze, and it made one feel very comfortable. Yi Xian hesitated for a moment, and then he said, "Pavilion master?" The woman blinked, and then she walked slowly to Yi Xian. She stretched out her right hand and smiled, "Hello, I'm Qin Guan. That's my real name." Yi Xian frowned slightly. "Qin Guan?" The woman smiled faintly like a spring breeze. "Yes, but it sounds like a man's name." Yi Xian nodded. "Yes." The woman smiled, and then she said, "My father gave it to me." At this moment, Xiao Ta suddenly said, "Young master, she wants to shake hands with you. This is the Milky Way's etiquette. You have to shake hands with her. Yi Xian hesitated for a moment before reaching out with his right hand to hold the woman's hand. The woman blinked and did not speak. Xiao Ta suddenly said, "What the heck, young master, I asked you to shake hands with him, not hold his hand. What are you doing?" Yi Xian's face darkened. "Why didn't you make it clear?" Xiao Ta said in a deep voice, "Mother asterisk Ker, am I not clear enough? You are the one who wants to act like a hooligan." Yi Xian was about to speak when Qin Guan suddenly laughed and asked, "Is this your pagoda?" Yi Xian looked at Qin Guan in astonishment. "You can hear it?" Qin Guan giggled. "I'm not trying to eavesdrop. Its concealment method is too backward. It's useless in front of me." Yi Xian was silent. Big boss. This woman, she's a real big boss. Qin Guan blinked. "Protagonist Yi, can you let me take a look at your pagoda?" Yi Xian hesitated for a moment before saying, "Miss Qin Guan, why do you call me protagonist Yi?" "My name is Yi Xian." Qin Guan laughed. "Then I'll call you young master Yi." Yi Xian asked in a deep voice, "What does protagonist mean?" Qin Guan blinked. "Simply put, it's equivalent to being the child of destiny. To put it in a more complicated way, it's not something that can be explained in a few words. Because it involves too many things, it's very troublesome to explain. In any case, it's very powerful." Yi Xian was speechless. Qin Guan asked again, "Can I take a look at your pagoda?" Obviously, she was very curious about Yi Xian's Xiao Ta. Yi Xian nodded. "Sure." With that, he handed Xiao Ta to Qin Guan. Actually, he also wanted to see Qin Guan's surprised expression. However, he was a little disappointed. After Qin Guan took Xiao Ta, she sized up Xiao Ta. After a moment, her eyes suddenly lit up and she laughed. "That's amazing. The time inside Xiao Ta and the outside world can be reversed to such an extent. That's amazing." With that, she returned Xiao Ta to Yi Xian. Although there was admiration in her eyes, there was no shock or astonishment. Yi Xian looked at Qin Guan. "Aren't you shocked?" Qin Guan smiled. "I'm all right." Yi Xian was silent for a moment before asking, "Can you do it?" Qin Guan nodded. "Yes." Yi Xian's expression froze. He hesitated for a moment before asking again, "Can you?" Qin Guan nodded. "Yes." Yi Xian was silent. His heart was in turmoil. This woman said she could. F***ck. What the hell? This was Qing Er's personal reversal of time. How many almighty people would be in awe of it? And this woman in front of him said she could do it too. At this moment, Yi Xian was a little confused. This woman wouldn't be like him, who liked to brag, right? Qin Guan suddenly laughed. "Young Master Yi, you've taken all my books. And my little gun, right?" Yi Xian retracted his thoughts and smiled. It's my fault for not being strict. I've already warned Xiao Ta that it won't take things randomly in the future. If it takes things randomly again, I'll break its legs. F***ck. Small Tower immediately jumped up, and began to spit out a fragrance. Yi Xian directly blocked Xiao Ta. "Xiao Ta?" Qin Guan covered her mouth and laughed. It was like 100 flowers blooming, making everything pale in comparison. "Mr. Yi." "Oh no, young Master Yi, it was obviously you who took it." "How could you say it was Xiao Ta who took it?" "It's not good to lie." Yi Xian, Qin Guan stretched out her little hand and smiled. "Young Master Yi, I can give you the books, but the gun. This gun is not suitable to appear in this universe. Can you return it to me?" Yi Xian hesitated for a moment, then said, "Miss Qin Guan, to be honest, it took the initiative to recognize me as its master, F***ck. The little gun suddenly said angrily, "Let me out." F***ck, how can you do this? Let me out. Xiao Ta suddenly said, "Don't F***king scream. He has already blocked all of us. This guy is ready to become a human." Little gun, Qin Guan stared at Yi Xian, blinking her eyes. This was the first time she met someone who lied without even blushing. She did not know what to say for a moment. Yi Xian quickly said, "I won't take your gun for free. I'll give you a gift too." As he said that, he quickly took out a piece of wood and began to carve. Qin Guan glanced at the wood in Yi Xian's hand, then gently stroked her hair behind her ear and smiled. "Carve?" Yi Xian nodded. "Yes." Qin Guan smiled. "I also like art very much." Yi Xian quickly said, "I like art very much too." Qin Guan looked at Yi Xian. "Young Master Yi, do you know what art is?" Yi Xian nodded and said casually, "Art refers to using some means or medium to create an image and then sell it for a lot of money. The more expensive it is, the better the art." After a moment of silence, Qin Guan said, "I can't refute that." Yi Xian, after a while, Yi Xian carved a small wooden figure. The small wooden figure was vivid and lifelike, exactly the same as Qin Guan. Yi Xian handed the small wooden figure to Qin Guan. Qin Guan took the small wooden figure and looked at it. She was amazed. "Young Master Yi, you didn't use any magical power. You carved it so well. It's purely by hand. If you go to our place, you can be a craftsman." Yi Xian smiled. "You like it, don't you?" Qin Guan looked at Yi Xian. "Is this for me?" Yi Xian nodded. Qin Guan shook her head. "I don't deserve it." As she said, she returned the small wooden figure to Yi Xian. "It's not appropriate to accept a gift from you on our first meeting." Yi Xian quickly said, "I'm not giving it to you for free. This small wooden figure is for you, and you're giving me that spear. We're even. We're even. I'm not at a loss. Don't feel guilty." Qin Guan hesitated and said, "I'm at a loss." Yi Xian, Qin Guan still wanted to say something, but Yi Xian suddenly said, "Miss Qin Guan, I remember something. Many people from Immortal Treasure Pavilion don't recognize the Shintian token you gave me. Not only do they not recognize it, but the previous president of Immortal Treasure Pavilion almost killed me. My body was crushed." Sigh. Qin Guan rolled her eyes at Yi Xian. "Young Master Yi, I know what you mean. I can give you that small spear, but you have to promise me one thing." Yi Xian was a little curious. "What is it?" Qin Guan said seriously, "This spear is very powerful. Once it is used, it will cause great harm to the world. You have to promise me that you can't use it easily. If the energy is too great, it will cause great pollution. Some powerful people are not afraid of it, but for those weak creatures, this pollution is destructive. Also, you can't use it on ordinary people or ordinary creatures, okay?" Yi Xian nodded. "Okay." Qin Guan nodded slightly. "As for your small wooden figure," Yi Xian quickly said, "I'll give it to you." Qin Guan looked at the small wooden figure and was silent. Yi Xian asked, "What's wrong?" Qin Guan shook her head slightly. "Just now, I felt the cause and effect. If I accept this thing, I'm afraid that something will happen in the future," Yi Xian said with a smile. "Why bother about the future? It's important to live in the present. It's just a small wooden figure. It represents the pure friendship between you and me." Qin Guan smiled and said, "That's true." After saying that, she put away the small wooden figure. Yi Xian glanced at the small cloth bag on Qin Guan's waist and said, "Miss Qin Guan, are you from the Milky Way?" Qin Guan nodded. "Yes. Young Master also knows the Milky Way." Yi Xian smiled and said, "I know. My two friends are there." Qin Guan smiled slightly. "I know. Is it little white an area?" Yi Xian was stunned. How do you know? Qin Guan smiled and said, I met them once. But I was just a little girl at that time. Oh, I still remember that they owed me money and didn't pay me back. He. Yi Xian was speechless. Meanwhile, Xiao Ta said abruptly, Young master, ask her what her father's name is. Yi Xian said, What do you mean? Xiao Ta said, Ask her. Yi Xian hesitated for a moment and said, Miss Qin Guan, what's your father's name? Qin Guan blinked. Qin Bufan. P.S. If you don't know about Qin Bufan, you can take a look at the previous book, Invincible Sword Domain. If you've read it, you should remember him. As for the Pavilion Master, he appeared in the first article I wrote, Outside the Milky Way. You can take a look. Just search for the official WeChat account, Green Phoenix Peak, and follow me. The only official account, Green Phoenix Peak. That's all. Don't make a mistake. Chapter 2199. Qin Bufan. Xiao Ta suddenly sighed softly when he heard this name, and his sigh carried a trace of a complicated tone. Yi Xian was quite curious. Xiao Ta, what's wrong? Xiao Ta sighed once more. Her father and master are brothers, brothers of life and death. Brothers of life and death. Yi Xian was quite surprised. My father's brothers of life and death? Xiao Ta said, Yes. I never expected that Qin Bufan's daughter would actually come to this world again. Moreover, she's so terrifying. Yi Xian looked at Qin Guan in front of him and said with a smile, You can hear Lil Tower's words, right? Qin Guan nodded. Yi Xian gazed at Qin Guan and said, Do you know that your father and my father know each other? Qin Guan grinned. Dao Yi, your father should be that green-clothed swordsman, right? Yi Xian nodded. Qin Guan smiled. I've investigated him in the past, and he fought alongside my father in the past. Yi Xian spoke in a low voice. Can you revive your father? Qin Guan shook her head. I can't. She paused for a moment before she continued. No one can revive the dead. Yi Xian spoke in a low voice. My father seems to have been revived in the past. Qin Guan smiled. The difference is that it's impossible to revive someone who's truly dead. Even if time is reversed, it's impossible. Yi Xian hesitated for a moment and said, Can you tell me about it in detail? Qin Guan thought for a moment and said, It's very complicated. If I were to explain it in detail, then it would involve numerous theories, and you probably wouldn't be able to understand it. Yi Xian's face instantly darkened when he heard this. It wasn't very harmful, but it was extremely humiliating. At this time, a voice suddenly came from the side, Miss Qin Guan. Yi Xian turned his head and saw a middle-aged man sitting cross-legged at the entrance of the hall not far away. The middle-aged man wore a loose gray robe and his long hair draped over his shoulders. His hands were placed on his knees. The Emperor of the Ancients. Yi Xian took a look at the primeval Grand Emperor with a solemn look in his eyes. He had already exchanged blows with the other party once. Terrifying. This was definitely far beyond the realm of quantitative change. Qin Guan glanced at the primordial and smiled. Primordial, you want to be resurrected too? The desolate antiquity smiled bitterly. Is that even possible? Qin Guan nodded. It's possible for you because you still have a wisp of your divided soul, and your consciousness is still in this world. Of course, the most important reason is that the enemy didn't completely erase you when he killed you. Otherwise, there would be no chance. Hearing this, the ancient desolate immediately stood up and bowed respectfully. Please save me, Miss Qin. Qin Guan was silent. The ancient desolate antiquity bowed again. Yi Xian tugged on Qin Guan's clothes and asked softly, Can you really save him? Qin Guan nodded. I can. But I don't want to. Yi Xian was slightly stunned, and then he said, Why? Qin Guan glanced at the ancient desolate antiquity in the distance. He's not a good person. If I save him today, then he'll bring harm to countless living beings in the future. Even though I didn't kill them, they'll die because of me. At this point, she shook her head slightly. It's a pleasure to help others, but it depends on the person. Don't save a demon and bring harm to the world. Yi Xian hesitated for a moment before he said, if he's a good person, then you'll save him, right? Qin Guan nodded. I will. Yi Xian said solemnly, if you really save him, then aren't you afraid of angering the big shot who killed him? Qin Guan smiled mischievously. I have a gun and money. Who am I afraid of? As she spoke, she took out a gun. The gun was slightly shorter than Yi Xian's, and it was purplish-black in color. She waved it at Yi Xian and said, this gun of mine is called All Life is Equal. I don't care if he's a supreme emperor, he'll kneel before me. Yi Xian. At this moment, the ancient desolate antiquity suddenly bowed again and said, Miss Qin Guan. Qin Guan put away her gun and shook her head. Ancient desolate antiquity, as far as I know, you once killed countless people to obtain a heaven vein. The karma of your evil thoughts is endless. Do you know that a large part of the reason why you ended up like this today is because of the sins you committed in the past? The ancient desolate antiquity said in a low voice, Miss Qin, this world is one where the strong are respected. Every cultivator has their hands stained with blood. As he spoke, he glanced at Yi Xian. Take him for example. Aren't his hands stained with blood as well? What kind of evil did he suffer? Qin Guan shook her head. You're different from him. The ancient desolate antiquity frowned slightly. How so? Qin Guan giggled. There's someone behind him, but there's no one behind you. The ancient desolate antiquity. Yi Xian. Qin Guan continued. Ancient desolate antiquity, I'm not criticizing you because you're right. This is how the world is. Every cultivator has their hands stained with blood. However, I personally don't like people who kill, so I refuse to reverse life and death for you. The ancient desolate antiquity was silent. Yi Xian glanced at the ancient desolate antiquity, then tugged on Qin Guan's clothes. Just as he was about to speak, Qin Guan suddenly glared at him. Don't pull so hard. My clothes are going to fall off. Yi Xian. Qin Guan rolled her eyes at Yi Xian. What are you trying to say? Yi Xian said in a low voice, Miss Qin Guan, you said some people can be reborn. Are you referring to those who still have a divine soul or a will in this world? Qin Guan nodded. Those who are completely erased can't be brought back to life. Completely erased means that the person's essence is gone. This is a true death. Hearing this, Yi Xian understood. Should I leave a clone with Qing? If that's the case, who do I need to be afraid of? Even if I'm killed, I can always start over. At the thought of this, Yi Xian could not help but show a smile at the corners of his mouth. He was very happy. In the distance, the ancient desolate antiquity suddenly sighed and slowly sat down with a sad expression. Qin Guan suddenly said, Ancient desolate antiquity, I came here today to see that vein of heaven. Can you let me take a look? The ancient desolate antiquity hesitated for a moment before opening his palm. A palm-sized stone slowly floated in front of Qin Guan. The stone was snow-white, and there was a tiny word on it, Fa. Qin Guan looked at it for a moment, then smiled. So that's how it is. As she spoke, she opened her palm, and the vein of heaven slowly floated in front of the ancient desolate antiquity. The ancient desolate antiquity looked at Qin Guan. Miss Qin, do you know where this thing came from? Qin Guan nodded. From the forbidden place. The ancient desolate antiquity frowned. The forbidden place? Qin Guan smiled and didn't say anything else. She turned to look at Yi Xian. I'm going to a place to do something. Do you want to come with me? Yi Xian thought for a moment, then said, all right. Qin Guan smiled. Let's go. As she spoke, she was about to take Yi Xian away. At this time, Yi Xian suddenly looked at the ancient desolate antiquity. Senior, are you going to leave behind an inheritance? The ancient desolate antiquity looked at Yi Xian. Yes. Yi Xian said seriously, what do you think of me, senior? The ancient desolate antiquity, Qin Guan looked at Yi Xian. Yi Xian said again, senior, after today, I'm afraid it'll be difficult for you to meet a monstrous genius like me again. The ancient desolate antiquity glanced at Yi Xian. You're not suitable. Yi Xian hurriedly said, why not? I'll see if I can change it. If I can, I'll change it for you on the spot until you're satisfied. Qin Guan, the ancient desolate antiquity, was completely speechless. Qin Guan moved closer to Yi Xian and whispered, his inheritance isn't that good. Yi Xian blinked. Really? Qin Guan nodded. I don't lie under normal circumstances. Yi Xian, seeing that the ancient desolate antiquity was still hesitating, Yi Xian smiled and then looked at Qin Guan. Let's go. Qin Guan nodded. She opened her palm and a sword appeared in her hand. The next moment, the sword suddenly turned into a sword light and flew up, then circled around her and landed steadily at her feet. Seeing this scene, Yi Xian was shocked. You're a swordsman? Qin Guan shook her head. No. Yi Xian was puzzled. Then Qin Guan smiled. I just like flying swords. This sword of mine is used for flying, not for fighting. Yi Xian, just as the two of them were about to leave, the ancient desolate antiquity suddenly said, little guy, wait. Yi Xian turned to look at the ancient desolate antiquity. The ancient desolate antiquity suddenly opened his palm and the vein of heaven slowly floated in front of Yi Xian. My inheritance is in this vein of heaven. From now on, you are the third successor of this vein of heaven. Yi Xian blinked. The third? The ancient desolate antiquity smiled. Yes. Yi Xian asked, who's the first? The ancient desolate antiquity shook his head. I don't know. Yi Xian didn't ask further. He immediately accepted the vein of heaven and said, thank you. The ancient desolate antiquity looked at Yi Xian and said meaningfully, take care. With that, his body gradually became illusory. In the end, he chose to disappear. Begged Qin Guan. He didn't do that. In any case, he was a super giant. Although he wanted to live, he would never beg to live. If he was afraid of death, he wouldn't have fought to the end back then. Just like a dragon, even if it died, it would never wag its tail and beg. Soon, the ancient desolate antiquity completely disappeared. After the ancient desolate antiquity disappeared, the secret realm in the middle of the square began to shatter. Yi Xian bowed deeply in the direction of the ancient desolate antiquity. He then turned to look at Qin Guan. Is he dead? Qin Guan nodded. Not at all. Yi Xian fell silent. After cultivating for millions of years, he finally turned to dust. He felt a little sad. Qin Guan suddenly said, let's go. Yi Xian nodded. The two of them were about to leave. At this time, after the secret realm disappeared, a powerful aura suddenly appeared in the distant sky. Seeing this, Yi Xian frowned. Obviously, after the ancient desolate antiquity disappeared, this place became less dangerous. Therefore, countless experts rushed to this place. Soon, Yi Xian sensed two familiar auras. One was the aura of Tai Huang. The other was the patriarch of the spirit demon race, Mu Su. They were all here. At this time, Qin Guan said, ignore them. Let's go. Yi Xian nodded. With that, he and Qin Guan left on their swords. In the distant sky, Mu Su stared at Yi Xian, who disappeared at the end of the starry sky. His eyes were cold. Vein of heaven. Chapter 2200. Before long, the news of Yi Xian obtaining the vein of the heaven spread throughout the great wilderness and the spirit demon race. The vein of the heavens. That was a godlike existence. Even the Time Lord and the Five Elements Lord coveted such a divine item. And now, Yi Xian obtained it. Who was Yi Xian? In fact, both the Great Wilderness and the Spirit Demon Realm were familiar with Yi Xian. After all, this was the one who slaughtered the Spirit Demon Realm. After a moment of silence, Mu Su turned and left. Beside him, Tai Huang frowned and said softly, "Pavilion Master." At this moment, an expert from the Great Wilderness Temple suddenly appeared in front of Tai Huang and said solemnly, "Hall Master, the vein of the heavens, should we snatch it?" Tai Huang slapped him with the back of his hand. Boom! The expert from the Great Wilderness Temple was slapped tens of thousands of meters away. Tai Huang coldly glanced at the expert that was sent flying, then pointed at his own head, somewhat disappointed that iron did not meet his expectations. "Don't just cultivate realms, cultivate more IQ, IQ." With that, he turned and left. The expert from the Great Wilderness Temple. In the distant starry sky, Yi Xian and Qin Guan traveled on their swords. Yi Xian glanced at Qin Guan not far away. Qin Guan had his hands behind his back, his long hair fluttering in the wind, exuding an indescribable temperament. Qin Guan suddenly smiled. "Young Master Yi, is the spirit demon race troubling you?" Yi Xian nodded. Qin Guan smiled. "You don't need to be afraid of them. Their race will eventually become history." Yi Xian looked at Qin Guan. "Why?" Qin Guan smiled mischievously. "Because they're troubling you." Yi Xian was silent for a moment. "Why will they become history if they're troubling me?" Qin Guan smiled. "Young Master Yi, there are 4 types of people in this world that are very terrifying. You're one of them." Yi Xian said solemnly, "Can you tell me more about it?" Qin Guan nodded slightly and said, "In our galaxy, people like you are called the Chosen One, that is, the Halo of Light. Under normal circumstances, you will not die, unless," Yi Xian quickly asked, "Unless what?" Qin Guan smiled and said, "Unless the next person with the mandate of heaven appears. If the next person with the mandate of heaven appears, then the previous person will no longer be the only one, and everything in the world will no longer revolve around him. Therefore, he may die." Yi Xian was silent. Qin Guan sized up Yi Xian, and then he said, "You're the only one right now, so you won't die for now. But I have a feeling that you won't be the only one anymore." Yi Xian's eyelids twitched. "Who's next? Can I kill him in advance?" Qin Guan blinked. "I advise you not to do that." Yi Xian was a little puzzled. "Why?" Qin Guan said seriously, "Because the next person with the mandate of heaven is likely to be your son." Yi Xian's expression froze. Qin Guan suddenly said, "Uncle Yang, that is, your father, is the last person with the halo of light." Yi Xian, at this time, Xiao Ta suddenly said, "Sister Guan, aren't you afraid of revealing the secret of heaven?" Qin Guan grinned and then took out a gun. "I have a gun. I'm not afraid." Xiao Ta, Yi Xian hesitated and then said, "Miss Qin Guan, what realm are you in?" Qin Guan shook her head. "I don't cultivate." Hearing this, Yi Xian was stunned. You don't cultivate? Are you a person with no realm?" Qin Guan nodded. "I like research, but I don't like cultivation. So, I don't fight." "Don't fight." Yi Xian was a little puzzled. This woman is so terrifying, but she doesn't know how to fight? Don't know how to fight? Yi Xian said in a low voice, "So, you've been relying on this gun to defend yourself all these years?" Qin Guan shook her head. Yi Xian was a little puzzled. He was about to speak when Qin Guan suddenly said, "I don't rely on this gun. I rely on many guns. I have a lot of guns. I've fed each gun with 100 million star god veins." Yi Xian's expression froze. 100 million star god veins. Yi Xian's mind was in a mess. Is this what a rich woman is like? I only dare to use 50,000 at a time, but she uses 100 million at a time. Are these star god veins cabbages? I'm afraid I'm a fake second generation. At this time, Qin Guan said, in addition to star god veins, there is also a kind of spirit vein called time vein. This kind of time vein is the core spirit vein of a world. This kind of time vein is relatively rare because it takes at least 1,000,000 years to condense into a time vein. Moreover, during this period, it can't be destroyed. Otherwise, it can't be called time vein. It can only be regarded as a pseudo-time vein. At this point, she shook her head slightly. This kind of time vein is too rare. Even I have less than a few million. Yi Xian's expression froze again. A few million, is it really rare? Is it really rare? Yi Xian was about to collapse. Qin Guan suddenly took out a gun from her small cloth bag. This gun was a little long as an adult. She glanced at Yi Xian and said with a smile, "This is my big sniper. I've installed 200 million star god veins. In 1,000,000 universes, as long as I want, I can instantly snipe anyone to death. With one snipe, their head will burst. I named it, Don't Mess With Me. Don't mess with me." Yi Xian, Qin Guan put the "Don't mess with me" into the small cloth bag. Then, she took out 2 egg-like things. They were black and had some strange runes and words drawn on them. Yi Xian was a little curious. "This is?" Qin Guan blinked. "You haven't seen it before, right?" Yi Xian nodded. Qin Guan smiled. "This is called a nuclear bomb." Yi Xian frowned slightly. "Egg? Egg closed?" Qin Guan shook her head. "The egg you're talking about is not the same as mine." Yi Xian, Qin Guan smiled and said, "I've fed these 2 with 300 million star god veins. The core has endless energy. As long as I detonate it, Yi Xian hesitated for a moment and then asked, "How powerful is it?" Qin Guan thought for a moment and then said, "It should be able to destroy 10,000 great ancient wastelands and spirit demon realm." Yi Xian. Qin Guan said again, "I named them, disregard for martial ethics." Yi Xian, Qin Guan suddenly shrugged and then said, "It's too powerful. I don't really want to use it because it will hurt the innocent." Yi Xian hesitated for a moment and then said, "How about you let me use it?" Qin Guan hurriedly shook her head. No. Your killing intent is too strong. Moreover, your personality is quite extreme. I can't let you use it." As she said that, she quickly put it away. Yi Xian glanced at Qin Guan's small cloth bag and then said in his heart, "Xiao Ta, if we snatch this cloth bag, what are the chances of success?" Xiao Ta was silent for a moment and then said, "Young master, if you want to snatch it, do it yourself. Please don't drag me into it. I, Xiao Ta, am not that kind of tower." Yi Xian, Qin Guan suddenly looked into the distance and then said, "We'll be there in half an hour." Yi Xian looked at Qin Guan and asked with a smile, "Miss Qin Guan, what is your most powerful divine item?" Qin Guan blinked and said, "Why are you asking this?" Yi Xian smiled and said, "I'm curious." Qin Guan smiled and said, "I have 4 extremely powerful ones. However, I can only tell you one of them. I have to keep the other 3 a secret." Yi Xian was a little curious. "Why keep it a secret?" Qin Guan giggled and said, "Trump card. Of course I have to keep it a secret." Yi Xian, Qin Guan said, "I have a fleet." Yi Xian looked at Qin Guan and asked, "What kind of fleet?" Qin Guan said, "I have hundreds of cosmic god warships. On each of them, there are hundreds of starship god armaments that can travel through time and space at will. Moreover, the scale is still expanding. My current goal is to build 3,000 of them." As she said, she smiled mischievously and said, "As long as I call them, they can instantly appear in front of me across millions of galaxies. I will attack wherever I point." Yi Xian was silent for a moment and thought to himself, "Xiao Ta, can we afford to offend this woman?" Xiao Ta said in a low voice, "Let's see if you can defend against the sword in her hand, equality of all beings." Yi Xian was silent for a moment and said, "Let's just be friends with her." Xiao Ta said, "Great minds think alike. If you can't win, join." "No problem." Qin Guan suddenly said, "We are here." As she said, she stopped and the sword under her feet flew back to her hand. She was about to put the sword into the small cloth bag when Yi Xian suddenly said, "Miss Qin Guan, can I see your sword?" Qin Guan smiled and said, "Of course you can." As she said, she handed the sword to Yi Xian. Yi Xian looked at it. The sword was 2 fingers wide and 4 feet long, slightly longer than the average sword. The blade was very thin, like a cicada's wing. The blade was average and not particularly sharp. As a whole, there was nothing special about it. Yi Xian looked at Qin Guan and said, "Miss Qin Guan, is your sword just an ordinary sword?" Qin Guan smiled and said, "To a swordsman, it is a very ordinary sword." Yi Xian did not understand. "What do you mean?" Qin Guan said, "My sword is only powerful when it's full of money." Yi Xian. Qin Guan took the sword and pointed at the hilt. "This is the entrance to charge money. As long as you feed it with Star God Pulse, it will become very, very powerful. As long as you have money, even an ordinary person can kill a quantitative change realm powerhouse with it. Of course, without money, it has no power." As she said this, she looked at Yi Xian and said with a smile, "The strength of this sword does not depend on your attainment in swordsmanship, but whether you have money or not." Yi Xian, Qin Guan continued, "My sword is not as powerful as yours." Yi Xian asked, "Why?" Qin Guan smiled and said, "Your sword involves more knowledge, and some of its functions, such as helping you improve your realm, are not normal." "Of course, I can understand that. After all, this world is not normal most of the time." Yi Xian, Qin Guan sheathed the sword and said, "Let's go. They must have been waiting for me for a long time." Yi Xian looked into the distance and saw a huge stone door not far away. Yi Xian followed Qin Guan and asked, "Miss Qin Guan, where are we going?" Qin Guan smiled and said, "The Great Thousand Domains, a place where countless planes intersect. Do you remember I told you that there are 4 kinds of people who are very scary? There are 2 other kinds there." Yi Xian, Xiao Ta suddenly sighed, "This girl is not a cultivator, she is a cultivator of money, the Tao of money." P.S. For those who haven't seen yesterday's news, you can search for my official WeChat account on Green Phoenix Peak and click follow to find the news. Later on, I will also update some news. The main story of the Milky Way will be updated in the form of news, so everyone can follow it. Moreover, the news is also free, you can get it for free, why not? Moreover, every day there will be pictures of some of my cousins and so on. Finally, I will let everyone guess a question. What do you think this Qin Guan's bloodline is? Let me see how many people have the same idea as me. Chapter 2201. Boundless Domain. Yi Xian had to admit he was shocked when he had followed Qin Guan into the vast Kiliacosm territories. In the starry sky, Yi Xian saw countless cities floating in the air. These cities were majestic and extremely luxurious. At a glance, the entire starry sky was filled with them, and there was no end to them. It was a magnificent sight. Not only that, there were many people in the starry sky, and their auras were extremely strong. Clearly, they were not ordinary cultivators. Lively. This was Yi Xian's first impression. The boundless domain was too prosperous. Suddenly, Qin Guan smiled. "Let's go to the Celestial Treasure Pavilion." "Miss Qin Guan, is there a Celestial Treasure Pavilion here?" Yi Xian asked in a deep voice. Qin Guan turned to Yi Xian and smiled sweetly. "Of course, as long as the world is slightly bigger, there will be a Celestial Treasure Pavilion." "How many Celestial Treasure Pavilions do you have?" Yi Xian asked curiously. Qin Guan tilted her head and thought for a while. After a while, she shook her head. "I'm not sure about the exact number, but there should be tens of millions of them, or even more. Yi Xian was speechless. On the way, Yi Xian asked again, "Is the Celestial Treasure Pavilion the headquarters?" "No." Qin Guan shook her head. "Where is your headquarters then?" Yi Xian was curious. Just when Qin Guan was about to speak, a young man suddenly appeared in front of Qin Guan. Behind the young man were two old men in black robes. Their auras were as strong as the starry sky. Just by standing there, they gave off an invisible pressure. The young man smiled. "Pavilion Master Qin." "Oh, it's Sir Qianji. What's the matter?" Qin Guan smiled. The smile on Qianji's face was gentle. "Nothing. I just heard that Pavilion Master Qin is back. So, I'm here to meet you." As he spoke, he took a look at Yi Xian and smiled. This is young Master Yi Xian, my friend." Pavilion Master Qin smiled. "Friends." Hearing this, Qianji's eyes flashed with astonishment. However, he quickly returned to normal and looked at Yi Xian with a smile. "Young Master Yi, nice to meet you." Yi Xian smiled. "Nice to meet you." Qin Guan smiled and said, "Young Master Qianji, I still have some matters to attend to. Farewell." After that, she left with Yi Xian. Qianji was deep in thought as he watched Qin Guan and Yi Xian disappear into the distance. No one knew what he was thinking. At this moment, an old man behind him suddenly said, "Do we need to investigate this youth?" After a moment of silence, Qianji shook his head. The person that Pavilion Leader Qin befriended is definitely not an ordinary person. If we investigate him recklessly, we might offend him. Moreover, doing so would offend Pavilion Leader Qin. The old man nodded slightly and did not say anything else. Qianji looked into the distance. After some time, he shook his head and smiled bitterly. "Everyone thinks that I, Qianji, can have anything I want, but," sigh, the two old men fell silent. They knew their young master's intention. If it was any other woman, their young master could have her with a wave of his hand. However, Pavilion Leader Qin was different. She was kind to everyone. This was polite, but it was also a form of alienation. On the road far away, Yi Xian was curious. "Miss Qin Guan, did you go there to look for me?" Qin Guan shook her head. "Not really. I went there to take a look at the vein of the sky. Since you were there, I guess it's fate." Yi Xian smiled. "It's fate indeed." Not long later, Qin Guan brought Yi Xian to the Celestial Treasure Pavilion. There were 12 floors in the pavilion and it was spacious. As soon as Qin Guan arrived at the entrance, an old man came out to welcome them. The old man walked to Qin Guan and knelt down. "Pavilion Leader." Qin Guan rolled her eyes at the old man. "Oldly, didn't I tell you that I don't like to kneel? I don't like kneeling at every turn. Next time you see me, don't kneel." Oldly smiled awkwardly. I forgot. Qin Guan shook her head helplessly. "You always say that you forgot. Are all the presidents and managers here?" Oldly quickly said, 1,360 presidents and 350 managers are here." Qin Guan nodded. "Let them wait a little longer." With that, she walked into the Celestial Treasure Pavilion. Yi Xian followed her. Glancing at Yi Xian, Mr. Li felt a little curious. Without thinking too much, he hurriedly followed after them. Qin Guan came to the 12th floor. Seeing Yi Xian following, Oldly hesitated but didn't say anything. But to his surprise, Yi Xian followed Qin Guan into the 12th floor. Qin Guan didn't let Yi Xian stay outside. Oldly was in disbelief. For so many years, no one had been able to enter the 12th floor. Who was this young man? Oldly was curious. On the 12th floor, after Yi Xian came in, he looked around. The room was filled with bookshelves. There were many books on the bookshelves. He casually glanced at them and realized they weren't from this world. Qin Guan sat in front of the desk and looked at Yi Xian. She smiled. Can you lend me your sword again? Yi Xian nodded. Of course. With that, he moved his mind and the green profound sword flew to the desk in front of Qin Guan. Qin Guan carefully sized up the green profound sword before picking up the pen and writing. Yi Xian walked closer and couldn't understand it. Words that didn't belong to this world. Yi Xian couldn't help but ask, Miss Qin Guan, what are you writing? Qin Guan smiled. I am writing a record of rare treasures. I will write down all the divine items that I see. Yi Xian was quite curious. How many have you recorded? Qin Guan shook her head. Not many. Only 37 of them have been recorded so far. Yi Xian asked, are they ranked? Qin Guan nodded and smiled. Yes. This sword of yours is ranked at the 3rd position. The 3rd. Yi Xian was quite disgruntled when he heard this, and he waved his hand. Why is it only the 3rd position? I refuse to accept it. Soul suddenly said, I refuse to accept it. Qin Guan blinked and smiled. Do you know what the 1st and 2nd position are? Yi Xian shook his head. We refuse to accept anything. We don't approve of your ranking. Qin Guan smiled delicately. Do you really not want to know what's ranked at the 1st and 2nd position? Yi Xian hesitated for a moment and said, I don't believe there's anything more formidable than the green profound sword. Qin Guan sized up the green profound sword and said, this sword is peerless indeed. However, there's still a gap when compared to the 1st and 2nd positions. Yi Xian couldn't help but ask, what's the 1st position? Qin Guan flipped to a page and said, let's talk about the 2nd position first. The 2nd position is called Dadeabi, and it's the sharpest divine item in the universe. A single stroke of its brush can determine the fate of all things in the universe. The tip of this brush is the sharpest known to the world, and it's even sharper than your sword. Its tip can easily tear apart a few tens of thousands of universes, and it's matchless. Besides that, this brush surpasses all Daos and techniques, and it will never fall into the cycle of reincarnation unless time strikes it. Yi Xian hesitated for a moment, and then he asked, it's that formidable? Qin Guan nodded. It's extremely, extremely formidable. Your current sword is unable to go against it. However, I can feel that the person who made this sword deliberately forged it to this extent in order to make it suitable for you to use. Yi Xian was silent for a moment, and then he said, is this Dadeabi in your hands? Qin Guan smiled. Not in my hands, but I know where it is. Yi Xian was curious. Where? Qin Guan said, my hometown. Yi Xian was stunned. The Milky Way? Qin Guan nodded. Yes. Yi Xian was silent. Damn. Are there so many big shots in the Milky Way? Yi Xian collected his thoughts and asked again, what about the 1st position? Qin Guan blinked and said playfully, that's a secret for now. Yi Xian was speechless. Miss Qin Guan, it's not good to keep me in suspense. Qin Guan smiled and said, you'll know in the future. However, I can tell you that the 1st position is also in my hometown, the Milky Way. As she spoke, she began to record the Qingxian sword. At the side, Yi Xian was speechless. Keeping me in suspense, how wicked. He had to admit that he was getting more and more curious about the Milky Way. Thinking of this, Yi Xian could not help but ask, Miss Qin Guan, is this the Milky Way's martial arts civilization? Is it very advanced? Qin Guan stopped and shook her head. The martial arts civilization in the Milky Way is not advanced. On the contrary, the martial arts civilization in our place is very low level compared to this vast universe. However, there is a super big shot in that place. Therefore, the Milky Way has become a little special. Yi Xian was curious. What kind of super big shot? Qin Guan thought about it and said, I can't say. Yi Xian's face darkened. She's keeping me in suspense again. After a while, Qin Guan closed the ancient book in front of her and said with a smile, "Done. Let's go to the meeting." As soon as she finished speaking, she put down her brush and walked out. Yi Xian hesitated for a moment and said, "Should I go as well?" Qin Guan smiled. "Of course. You're a super VIP of my Celestial Treasure Pavilion. In theory, you're a member of my Celestial Treasure Pavilion as well." Yi Xian was speechless. After a while, Qin Guan led Yi Xian to a starry sky. This was a sealed starry sky, and there were over 1,700 people gathered here when he and Qin Guan arrived. Yi Xian noticed that most of the experts here had actually attained the quantitative change realm. Moreover, over 30 of them were unfathomable. This had obviously surpassed the quantitative change realm. What a grand scene! Yi Xian sighed softly. The Celestial Treasure Pavilion was even more terrifying than he'd imagined. The people here hurriedly bowed respectfully when they saw Qin Guan. "Greetings, Pavilion Master." Qin Guan smiled. "There's no need to be so polite. Everyone, sit." As soon as he finished speaking, an enormous long table appeared here, and all of them hurriedly sat around it. Qin Guan sat at the seat of the host, and then she seemed to have thought of something. She suddenly gazed at Yi Xian, who was still looking for a seat. "Young Master Yi, sit by my side." The expression of an old man by Qin Guan's side froze when he heard this. But he hurriedly stood up in the next moment, and then he grinned at Yi Xian. "Young Master Yi, please sit by my side." All of them gazed at Yi Xian with curiosity in their eyes. Yi Xian cupped his fists to the old man, and then he sat by Qin Guan's side. Qin Guan glanced at the old man and smiled. "Brother Zhang, you don't mind, right?" Brother Zhang hurriedly said, "Not at all, Pavilion Master. How could I mind such a trivial matter?" Qin Guan smiled tenderly. "I knew you wouldn't mind. That's why I asked him to sit at your seat. It's just a seat, and there's no other meaning. Don't think too much about it." Brother Zhang heaved a sigh of relief when she heard this, and she hurriedly said, "No. I won't." Qin Guan nodded. "Let's find a seat. We have something important to discuss." Meanwhile, a middle-aged man at the side hurriedly stood up and said, "Elder Zhang, please sit." Elder Zhang's status in the Immortal Treasure Pavilion was so high that it was only inferior to a few extraordinary elders that were hidden in the shadows. Elder Zhang glanced at the middle-aged man, nodded slightly, and then sat on the middle-aged man's seat. The middle-aged man was just about to look for a seat when a man beneath him hurriedly stood up. "Elder Jun, please sit at my seat." Yi Xian was speechless when he witnessed this scene. Qin Guan had a slight headache as well. She pressed lightly on her head and shook her head. "I know that there are ways of the world wherever there are people, but all of you have to act according to the situation. If you continue giving way like this, then you'll have to give way for another hour, right?" Everyone was speechless. Qin Guan took out a notebook from her small pouch, and then she said, "I gathered all of you here mainly for two things. Firstly, young Master Yi possessed my Azure token, but my subordinates disobeyed the rules I set. Not only did they refuse to help young Master Yi, they even plotted against him. Regarding this matter, all of you." Meanwhile, Brother Zhang suddenly spoke coldly, "Kill. These people disrespected the Pavilion Master and deserve to be killed." "Yes. Kill. Disrespected the Pavilion Master. Slaughter 3 of their clans." "No. Disrespecting the Pavilion Master is a grave crime. How could it be enough to slaughter 3 of their clans? Slaughter 9 of their clans. I'll listen to the Pavilion Master. Whatever the Pavilion Master says, the Pavilion Master is wise and valiant. He is skilled in both literature and martial arts. He will live for thousands of years and unify the universe. Long live the Pavilion Master. Long live the Pavilion Master. The Pavilion Master is awesome." Yi Xian was dumbfounded by this scene. Chapter 2202 Yi Xian was speechless when he witnessed this scene. He'd seen flatterers, but he'd never seen flatterers in such a way. These fellows are too shameless. Moreover, all of them are extraordinary experts. Qin Guan, who stood by Yi Xian's side, slapped her forehead lightly with her right hand. My head hurts. Yi Xian was speechless. The others were still flattering Yi Xian without end, and they seemed to have no intention of stopping. Meanwhile, Qin Guan suddenly slapped the table with her right hand. Bang! In an instant, everyone stopped what they were doing. Qin Guan glared at them and said, "From this moment onward, all of you better be serious." Everyone hurriedly nodded. Qin Guan spoke indifferently. Has Yu Xian, who plotted against young Master Yi, been sentenced? Brother Zhang hurriedly said, "He's been killed." Qin Guan gazed at Brother Zhang. Brother Zhang smiled embarrassedly. He's been sentenced. Disobeying the pavilion master's orders is the #1 crime of my celestial treasure pavilion, and he deserves death. He deserves death. Qin Guan remained silent for a moment before she nodded slightly, and then she turned around to look at Yi Xian. Young Master Yi, my celestial treasure pavilion is in the wrong. We gave you the black sky token, yet we didn't allow you to enjoy the rights you deserve. I represent the celestial treasure pavilion to express our sincerest apologies for this, and I hope you can forgive us. Yi Xian fell silent. Qin Guan said, "There will be compensation." Yi Xian immediately said, Of course, of course. It's just a small matter, and it's not worth mentioning. I'm not the type of person to fuss about it." Everyone was speechless. Qin Guan rolled her eyes at Yi Xian, and then she flipped to the next page. She said, "Next up is a very important matter. I hope everyone will listen carefully. A very chaotic era is coming. A very chaotic era." Everyone frowned slightly when they heard this, and they didn't understand what she meant. Yi Xian was a little curious. "Miss Qin Guan, what chaotic era?" Qin Guan sighed softly. "I only found out not long ago that the forbidden land of the ruins of God has been destroyed. Forbidden area of the ruins of God." The others in the surroundings frowned slightly when they heard this because they'd never heard of it. Yi Xian had never heard of it either. Qin Guan said, "The universe is very big, so big that it has no end. Therefore, everyone only knows that they are in the universe, but they don't know where they are in the universe. Now, I will explain the background of this world in detail so that everyone can have a clear understanding of this universe." As she spoke, she flipped to the next page and continued, "With the vast 1,000 domains as the center, I headed north of this world. After crossing trillions of light years, I still haven't reached the end of the universe. However, I saw an ancient ruin. According to my investigation, this ruin was at least trillions of years ago. Billions of years ago." All the spectators were dumbstruck when they heard this. Yi Xian was also shocked. An ancient civilization that existed trillions of years ago. Qin Guan continued, "Being in such a complicated universe, we have no idea what stage we are in the history of this universe. Any living being in this universe seems extremely tiny." When she spoke up to hear, she shook her head slightly. "Countless ancestors of my hometown once studied this starry sky universe. We once worked hard to allow our people to enter the starry sky universe and explore this unknown universe. However, the further we went, the more we realized how tiny we were. Because our blue planet isn't even a speck of dust in the universe, no, in the Milky Way galaxy." Everyone fell silent. Yi Xian suddenly asked, "What's outside the ancient ruin?" Qin Guan smiled and said, "It's still the boundless universe." Yi Xian fell silent. Qin Guan continued, "Many cultivators often say that the martial Tao has no end. Actually, I think it's the universe that has no end. Since the universe has no end, it means that everything is unknown, and the unknown means that everything is possible. So, the Tao has no end." As she spoke, she flipped to another page and said, "I've organized the universe that I know of, and I've named the universe that I know of, Universe Visualization. All of them had strange expressions on their faces when they heard this. Qin Guan blinked. I spent a huge amount of time exploring and searching. So, it's not too much to name it after me, right? All of them hurriedly shook their heads. It's not too much. Yi Xian suddenly said, Miss Qin Guan, I think you can add a word to it. Qin Guan was quite curious. What word? Yi Xian said seriously, universe visualization. Qin Guan's eyes blinked. This, Yi Xian said seriously, universe visualization sounds better. Everyone's expressions grew even more strange. This kid is so shameless. Qin Guan was slightly hesitant. This, Yi Xian sighed softly, if Miss Qin Guan feels that it's difficult, then forget it. Qin Guan immediately said, all right. Yi Xian's expression froze. I'm not done. Qin Guan glanced at Yi Xian. You didn't do anything. Traversing stellar regions is very tiring. Yi Xian sighed softly, all right. If you feel that it's difficult, then forget it. In any case, this universe has nothing to do with me, Yi Xian. Guarding the universe is very tiring indeed, and it's strenuous and unrewarding. Qin Guan suddenly said, let's call it universe visualization. Everyone was speechless. Yi Xian frowned slightly. You don't feel that it's difficult? Qin Guan giggled, it's just a name. Yi Xian fell silent. He suddenly felt that he hadn't gained anything. Something was wrong. Qin Guan continued, the universe visualization is divided into 3 regions. The most powerful force in the northern region is the Forbidden Land. The Forbidden Land's martial arts civilization is advanced, and it has the highest known realm of the universe, the visualization realm. Everyone's expressions froze. Could it be that the pavilion master named it herself? Qin Guan smiled, I named it, and the pavilion master has already agreed. This realm was modified by me, and the pavilion master's strength has risen to the next level under my guidance. Therefore, the highest realm of the universe visualization is the visualization realm. As for the other realms, I will tell you about them in detail later, because I have already sorted out the current realms. As she spoke, she shook her head slightly. Not only are there many realms in the universe visualization, but they are also very messy. Therefore, I have already sorted them out. The unnecessary realms will be deleted, and the useful ones will be kept. Some useful realms will also be combined with other realms to form a new realm. When the time comes, I will announce it to the entire universe visualization. Apart from that, I also wrote a book called Book of Observation. This book records the cultivation methods of each realm in detail, as well as their unique features, so that cultivators can better understand each realm. Below, old Zhang hurriedly asked, Pavilion Master, are you selling this book? Hearing this, all the presidents instantly became excited. If they were to sell it, wouldn't the Celestial Treasure Pavilion make a killing? However, Qin Guan shook his head. I'm not selling. Hearing this, everyone was stunned. Qin Guan said seriously, this kind of thing benefits the entire Guanxian cosmos, it can't be measured with money. As she spoke, she glanced at the guild masters present, and then he said, remember, those who are rich enough to rival a country, if they don't have benevolence and do whatever they want, exploiting the people, then they are rich but heartless. Those who are rich but heartless, no matter how much wealth they have, are just slaves to money. At this point, her tone became more serious. I don't care about outsiders, but since you respect me, then you must do as I say. Money is important, but virtue is more important. A gentleman loves money, but he must obtain it in the right way. Yi Xian glanced at Qin Guan and nodded slightly. This woman's values are as righteous as mine. The Celestial Treasure Pavilion branch presidents nodded, expressing their agreement with Qin Guan's words. Qin Guan continued, has President Meng Meng of the Forbidden Land arrived? At this moment, an old man hurriedly said, Pavilion Master, not yet. The Forbidden Land is too far from the boundless thousand domains, and President Meng Meng is still on her way. After a moment of silence, Qin Guan said, I have already planned to build a teleportation array between the 3 domains and the boundless 1,000 domains. There are no problems in terms of funds or technology, but, at this point, she looked at Yi Xian. Young Master Yi, I was worried about this before, but after seeing the sword in your hand, I made a new discovery. As far as I know, your sword can freely travel through space, right? Yi Xian nodded, that's right. Qin Guan praised, the person who made this sword has unfathomable attainments in space and time. She reminded me that space and time can be homogenized. I have to say, it's really awesome. As she spoke, her small face blushed. When I'm excited, my words are too vulgar. Hee hee. Yi Xian was speechless. Qin Guan continued, I have already understood the mystery of your sword ignoring space and time, so there is no problem in terms of technology. However, because this homogenization of space and time was not my idea, I am embarrassed to directly use it in my teleportation array. Young Master Yi, how about this? You lend me this technology, and I will give you 30% of the profits of the teleportation array every year. 30%. Yi Xian blinked, how much? Qin Guan thought for a moment, then said, there should be a minimum of 1 billion star god veins every year. Yi Xian was stunned at first, but the next moment, he quickly said, deal. Qin Guan blinked, do you want to ask the person who made this sword first? Yi Xian quickly shook his head, no, I agree. Qin will not have any other opinions. Moreover, her invention is equivalent to my invention. Qin Guan nodded slightly, then turned to look at a young woman not far away, go and draw up a contract. The woman quickly got up and retreated. Yi Xian frowned slightly, do we still need to sign a contract? Qin Guan smiled, of course. Yi Xian's face darkened, you don't believe me? Of course I don't. Qin Guan was straightforward and almost said what she thought, but she reacted quickly and quickly changed her words. Of course I believe young Master Yi, this contract is just a formality, a formality. Yi Xian, at this time, Xiao Ta suddenly said, young master, really, not to mention this pavilion Master Qin, even I don't believe you. Sometimes when you are shameless, can you still be called a human? Let's not talk about other things, just look at how many inheritances you have tricked along the way. You walk into a secret realm ruin and ask people if they have an inheritance? How can you be so thick-skinned? Yi Xian's face darkened, Xiao Ta, you are really bold, how dare you scold Qin, F***ck, Xiao Ta jumped up, You're tuning into the Biyao's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.